This will give it an impetus because we realize that we cannot rely either on Europe or the US on the economic front. We have to do what we have to do. That was a wake-up call for us as well and for the economy too.
Ambassador Vasilina Benzia, thank you very much for joining me on Hard Talk. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Jeff Goods. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. Yes, you could call it. We're out in St. Boniface this morning with CBC's Information Radio on 89.3 FM, as mentioned, 990 AM on the app, on YouTube, or anywhere you're going to be hearing us. So hopefully you'll come and visit us. We're at 140 Provencher. Colosimo Coffee is where we are this morning, and we are here because of the city budget. There's a lot to talk about. It's a preliminary budget, so you have a chance to weigh in right now. But one of the things that had a lot of people concerned this week was the announcement that one of the pools in this neighborhood is up for closure, and that's Happy Land Pool. It's just a few blocks over on Maryland in this neighborhood, so it's one of the reasons we chose to be here today. But we have a lot coming up on the program, so thanks for being with us. We're on air till 8:37 a.m. with the show. Corey Funk on site with me. Good morning, Corey. Back in our studios this morning, Brad Lilly, Shanley Vidal, as well as Abby Adeyemi, and Heather Wells with headlines in a moment. I just want to mention the weather. On the drive over, mostly slushy and icy, so right now we kind of are on the backside of the active part of the storm, but still some concerns out there potentially with the roadways. So 788-3093 if you need us on the commute. And let's go to Heather now and find out what's going on in news.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipegger originally from Chad is not surprised more people from his homeland are seeking refuge in Manitoba. Last month, officials found 7 men from Chad who walked across the border near Emerson. Raymond Garboui left Chad more than 20 years ago. He says his homeland is run by a dictator and his militia, and people there fear for their lives. He hopes those seeking refuge here receive empathy from authorities. And organizations hosting Pride events in Manitoba are banding together to make sure their voices are heard. We'll hear about the Manitoba Pride Alliance in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We have a World Report coming up, national and international news at 6. I should mention in Winnipeg today, forecast-wise, our high is -7. It's going to be windy, though. Winds will be northwest 30, gusting to 50. And so on the show today, we're going to hear from Councillor Matt Allard from here in St. Boniface about the budget. We're going to hear from the Residents Association. Now, widening out the picture to other things that we'll have this Friday morning, it is time for our regular monthly interview with Premier Wab Kinew. So he is going to be joining us here at Colosimo Coffee as well to talk about a variety of issues. Stay with us for a special show. We'll be back after.
On cue. After breaking into TV in a big way with a starring role on The Wire, Pablo Schreiber has made a career out of iconic roles. His latest is as Master Chief in the TV adaptation of the huge video game Halo. He'll be here to tell you about his career and dealing with angry video gamers.
You have millions of people who see the character as a version of themselves.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcast.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm John Northcott. We begin with your personal health data on the market. If you have medical appointments by text, phone, or video, that's virtual care. Most sites are run by private for-profit companies. They flourished during the pandemic, and now a new study funded by Canada's Privacy Commissioner shows some of those sites are selling your patient information. Health reporter Christine Birak has the details.
And what we found might surprise patients.
Dr. Cheryl Spithoff led a study examining how virtual care companies gather, use, and sell patient data.
Your health and
the industry includes Maple, TELUS Health, and Rocket Doctor. Insiders, including company executives, told researchers in some cases, virtual care companies were paid by pharmaceutical companies to push products.
So they were actually using that patient data to make decisions in terms of how they were going to organize patient care to increase the uptake of a drug or a vaccine.
Your family doctor isn't trying to collect superfluous information in order to market services to you.
Lorian Hardcastle teaches health law at the University of Calgary. She says with a shortage of family doctors, some provinces are actively pushing patients toward for-profit virtual care, even paying for some appointments.
I mean, I think all of this puts the public in a difficult situation.
You can see a local healthcare professional.
Dr.
right
Spithoff
from your
insists
smartphone.
Canadians shouldn't have to sacrifice privacy to access care.
What we're calling for is that all data collected through these platforms is treated as personal health information.
That designation would give Canadians the power to opt out of data collection on these for-profit sites. Researchers insist politicians need to catch up with the times, make sure virtual care is serving patients, not company profits. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Indigenous people across the country are watching for a decision from the Supreme Court of Canada this morning. Bill C-92 became law in June of 2019. The bill opens a door for First Nations, Métis and Inuit to develop their own child welfare laws and policies. But Quebec is arguing the federal government overstepped its jurisdiction by allowing Indigenous laws to override existing provincial legislation. Vote counting in Pakistan's general election is taking much longer than anticipated. The delay is leading to accusations the Electoral Commission is rigging the outcome. Some observers say this is another sign the election is going to be one of the least credible in Pakistan's history. Salima Shivji has more from Islamabad.
Inshallah, I will protest because that is a not fair election.
Icham al-Haq says the evening started off well for supporters of Imran Khan, the former prime minister who's jailed and barred from running. But come morning, al-Haq claims there was a shift.
Army is coming, they check the polling. After 10 a.m. result change. Our candidates win. Why is the result changed?
The election results are trickling in with votes still being counted. But Khan's party Tehreek-e-Insaf appears to have a strong showing in an election many saw as orchestrated after a crackdown on Khan's party, with analysts saying Pakistan's powerful military was pushing their favored candidate, Nawaz Sharif. This level of uncertainty with initial vote tallies very slow to come in is unusual in this country, and that's creating worry among some of more potential meddling.
Generally, elections are meant to create a hope.
But this one not so much, says Tahir Malik, an Islamabad-based political scientist and analyst. He says the fact that many Pakistanis were determined to cast their ballots is good for democracy, but the delays in announcing results are not a good sign.
Even post-election political crisis or the legitimacy crisis will stay here, and the credibility of elections is questionable.
It's likely, Malik says, that no party will win a majority and there will be a coalition government, a divided political landscape when what Pakistan needs most is stability. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Islamabad.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is using a rare Western media interview to take shots at Ukraine's president and the Canadian Parliament. In an interview with former Fox News commentator Tucker Carlson, Vladimir Putin invoked that incident in the House of Commons when Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky joined parliamentarians in applauding a Ukrainian-Canadian veteran. He was later revealed to have served in a Nazi unit. Here is what Putin said, speaking through a translator.
The President of Ukraine stood up with the entire Parliament of Canada and applauded this man. How can this be imagined?
Despite extensive coverage last fall, Putin says the incident is being silenced by Western media. A spokesperson says Tucker Carlson was granted this interview because he has differing views from other English-language media. U.S. President Joe Biden is pushing back at yesterday's special counsel report. Robert Herr's report into Biden's handling of secret documents described him as, quote, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory. Richard Madden is in Washington. Richard, what exactly is Biden saying?
Yeah, the president really tried to contain the political fallout from that scathing report, but he may have caused more political damage to his re-election bid and given new material for his opponents. Late last night, Biden held a surprise news conference defending his mishandling of those classified documents and trying to address head-on one of the most damaging allegations in that report. Investigators said Biden's memory was, quote, significantly limited, and they chose not to press charges because a jury would view Biden as, quote, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Now, these are allegations many voters, including Democrats, have deep concerns with, according to polls. So Biden pushed back in a defiant exchange with reporters. Listen.
My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I've become president.
Now, Biden tried to contrast his handling of classified documents, where he fully cooperated with investigators, versus former President Donald Trump, who did not and was charged.
But Richard, even as Biden defended his memory, there was a slip-up, was there not?
Yeah, sure was. Biden likely made things worse at the end of his news conference. As he was leaving the podium, he was asked questions about Israel. At first, he said Israel's handling of the situation in Gaza was, quote, over the top. But then he tried to reference the president of Egypt and seemed to get confused.
Initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow.
So clearly this was a gift to the Trump campaign and Republicans. Both immediately seized on the gaffe and will likely make this part of their campaign heading into November.
Richard Madden in Washington. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
Donald Trump says by the end of Super Tuesday on March 5th, he will be the Republican nominee for president.
We're leading everybody. Is there any way we can call the election for next Tuesday? That's all I want.
Last night, Trump won the Nevada caucuses, but Trump was the only major candidate participating in the race. Nikki Haley skipped the caucuses, calling the process unfair and favoring Trump. South Carolina next on the list. It's also Haley's home state. She was elected as governor of South Carolina twice. Despite being down in the polls, though, she hopes her local roots will give her an edge in that primary election. Investment scams have cost Canadians more than $350 million last year alone. But often the scammers themselves are unwilling participants, people being held captive overseas where they're forced to target Canadians. David Common has the details of this CBC Marketplace investigation.
So she said this is a beach that she went to.
Our producer has been exchanging seemingly innocent messages with a new online connection for days.
You're friends with her now.
Now that supposed friend is pitching a crypto investment opportunity.
This is a very hot investment project.
But it's really a scam.
$500,000 US on my life saving.
Stephanie Lynn was among those drawn in who lost big. The man she was messaging was using a fake persona. Even more shocking, it turns out a growing number of scam calls are made by people locked inside buildings, victims of human trafficking, often in Southeast Asia, beaten if they question their organized crime bosses.
Were you able to do a trace for us? Absolutely. Well, I can show you kind of in live time what that looks like.
Tracking money lost in crypto scams requires following electronic breadcrumbs. But it's not impossible.
We got 20.6 million US dollars that have been sent to that address by itself. So certainly that's more than one victim that we're seeing here.
Investigator Ryan Ryder.
This is much easier to follow than cash. It is fully open source. It is a public ledger.
Many victims, though, never come forward. They're embarrassed and heartbroken in a scam which has stolen from thousands of Canadians in the past year. David Common, CBC News, Edmonton.
And you can watch the full Marketplace story on CBC TV, CBC Gem tonight at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, you go to our website, cbcnews.ca. One of the top stories this hour, just read you the headline, a court battle between the CRA and the Toronto Maple Leafs captain could be pivotal to other pro athletes. That's some analysis coming up for you on cbc.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio live on location, and a beautiful location it is. We're at Colosimo Coffee Roasters at 140 Provencher. Come down and see us. If you're listening to CBC, you're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, or you might even be watching on YouTube this morning as well. 6:10 a.m. is the time. We'll get into the weather today. No watches or warnings, which is really good news. But we will be updating what's happening. Bit of an aftermath out there. It was slushy on Portage Avenue when I was coming in. There's light snow falling in Winnipeg right now. So we're here to talk city budget because, of course, we heard that in St. Boniface, one of the big things that will be affected is the closure of a loved pool, Happy Land Pool. This hour, we're going to hear why the councillor for this area, Matt Allard, says he was shocked about it, and he's now taking all kinds of calls from residents who are worried. So stay tuned for that coverage. And we're going to start with a man who says that the St. Boniface Hospital, just near to our location this morning, saved his life. And so he wants to give back. And one of the things he's doing is running every street in Winnipeg. He's just finishing his last street right now, but we'll talk more about why that run is going to benefit the St. Boniface Hospital and what his story is. So we've got that coming up as well. Right now, let's get to some things that will matter to your morning, starting with what's happening in the news. Heather Wells is here with our developing headlines.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg police say auto theft here is different than the problem plaguing Ontario and Quebec. Organized crime groups in those provinces are stealing cars and then shipping them to be sold overseas. You heard the story yesterday. It's all sparked a national summit in Ottawa. Well, officers say those types of thefts are rare in Manitoba. Here, it's more often a crime of opportunity using the owner's keys or key fob. We're going to hear from one Winnipeg woman whose vehicle was stolen and she still doesn't have it back. The Balmoral Hotel's transformation into an Indigenous wellness center is almost complete. The doors at the new Pimicikamak Wellness Center are open, even while it is still under renovation. We'll hear what that center is going to offer to people in our next local news at 6:30.
Heather Wells, what's interesting about all the car theft stories across the country right now is years ago in Winnipeg, we reported on that constantly. We had major problems with car theft, and we were kind of the home in Manitoba of a number of initiatives to get ahead of it.
Right. I mean, and we had immobilizers, remember, everyone?
Yeah.
And those things you put on your steering wheel, what were they called? The club?
Oh, the club, yeah. So we were kind of at the ground floor of it. I found it interesting that in the statistics, at least nationally, we're not as high as other provinces. But whether it was because of some of the measures put in place, I'm not sure. So,
well, you know, it's becoming, they're calling Canada a candy land for auto thieves. And they're saying things like computer systems in cars make it easier, actually, for thieves to get in and drive it away.
If you have a story, thank you, Heather, about auto theft. If you're listening and thinking, oh, my car got stolen, or you're having a problem with this in your neighborhood, you can always call us, 788-3205. Well, let's continue our good mornings today. And next up is Mr. Abby Adeyemi, who is our regular technical producer. Abby's back at 541 Portage Avenue with our forecast. Hi, Abby.
Good morning, Marcy. I tried opening the car this morning and it was frozen.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah,
there was some scraping this morning for me too.
I did some scraping this morning. But the good thing right now is the warnings are gone, the special weather statements are gone, and now we have wind and a little bit of snow blowing here and there. So as you plan to start your day, you need to bundle up, Winnipeg. It's chilly out there. Currently, we have light snow and it is blowing with a temperature at minus 10 degrees. We will see continuing blowing snow and, of course, that light snow this morning gusting to 50, and it's cool. It's a cooler day. It's going to be feeling like minus 20 with that wind chill, and expect the high for today to reach minus 7 degrees. But right now, Winnipeg is at minus 10.
Shanley Vidal, what's going on in the traffic situation? Shanley's helping out today, and she's going to be covering just in case we have school closures. But so far, I think not any of those, right?
Not to my knowledge so far. As Abby mentioned, we do have a lot of blowing snow, which could create some reduced visibility, especially on those highways. Highway 15 from Winnipeg to Enola, visibility is fair. Highway 59 North also has some fair visibility. If you're on the perimeter, keep in mind that it is partially ice covered, and there is a bit of blowing and drifting snow. And if you have a traffic tip, 204-788-3093.
Well, I want to mention, if you want to weigh in on anything that was in the city budget, any of the rates that you're going to be paying that are going to be higher all across the city, the fact that there's no more money for road improvements and construction, that budget actually isn't being increased, or some of the recreational issues that brought us to St. B this morning. What does it look like from your neighborhood? You can always weigh in on our Facebook page, good way to get a hold of us, or you can call our listener line. On Facebook, it's Marcy Marcusa, and it acts as a show page. And we'll get into some of the comments that are already there in a moment. First, though, let's start with a man who loves this neighborhood with his whole heart. He survived a heart attack back in 2006, and he's still chasing his goal to run through every street in Winnipeg. It's a project called Winnipeg Street Run 5,000 Kilometers. We spoke with him actually back in September about why this run was important to him. Now we thought we'd check in on Paul this morning, Paul Bernardin, and that is because he, I understand, just finished running through Windsor Park. Good morning, Paul.
Yes, good morning, Marcy.
So are you done everything, or you just finished the Windsor Park neighborhood? Where are you at with your runs?
I just finished the Windsor Park neighborhood last night. I actually have to go back and do one more mile because of a glitch in my app, and I missed a few streets there, but we'll get it done.
So for people who may have missed the reason you're doing this, can you share a little bit about why you care about St. Boniface Hospital and what happened to you?
Well, what happened to me is on a trek to Everest Base Camp back in 2006, I had some extreme pain, and it was absolutely horrible pain. And then when I got back to Winnipeg, I had a heart attack on the May long weekend, and was taken to St. Boniface Hospital. And at that time, they told me that this was not my first heart attack. I had already had one, which I now presume was up while I was going to Everest Base Camp. But anyway, they patched me up at St. Boniface Hospital, and the service. I was just totally amazed with the care that I received there. And I've always wanted to find a way to pay back somehow. And through COVID, I started to realize that the one thing that I did well was running. As I started running after they fixed me up, and I put on something like 10,000 miles. So I decided I'd take up a project of running all the streets in Winnipeg and hopefully raise $50,000 for St. Boniface Hospital.
Where are you at so far in terms of what you've raised for the Cardiac Care Center?
Oh, right now I'm just getting myself known here, so we're at $3,500 right now.
Can I ask you whether or not you were nervous about running? Because you went through this heart event. They told you, I'm guessing to your surprise, that you'd actually had a previous heart event, and you chose running, so that could put some stress on your heart. Were you nervous about that?
I did receive some encouragement from some nurses that I could go ahead with running, and I would approach my cardiologist and I would ask him how much I can do, and he said, "Don't worry about it. Your body will tell you when to stop." And so we continued doing this. They had put an additional 2 stents into my heart a year and a half after the original heart attack, and so I was asking him how much I could do, and he just said, "Just listen to your body." And one day I said, "Well, okay, I want to run the half marathon on Father's Day," and he asked me, "Well, how far are you running now?" I said, "Well, I ran 9 miles yesterday." And he said, "Oh my," he said, "your medication wasn't supposed to allow you to do that." So
I love that you're sharing this, though, because I think it's important, because I think a lot of times when people do have an event like a heart attack, they might think if something that, if you're someone that loves being active, you might think that that's lost to you. So it's inspiring to hear that it wasn't lost to you. How many streets have you done so far in your goal for St. B and your fundraising run around the city, and how many do you have left then?
There's about 4,800 streets, and I'm getting close to the 1,600 mark, and that's 1,600 kilometers as well. They seem to be averaging pretty consistently at 1 kilometer per street.
How long is the whole thing going to take you then? Like start to end, if you think?
I gave myself till my 20th anniversary of the heart attack to finish it, which would be in May of 2026. And right now I'm ahead of schedule, so barring any bumps in the road, I should be done early.
What part of the city are you running through next once you finish those last few pesky streets in Windsor Park?
Oh, I've always got a few locations going on. Today I'll be running in St. Norbert. Tomorrow will be River Heights. And I'm also working North Kildone and Transcona a little bit yet right now.
Can people join you? I understand that's part of this as well. If somebody wants to come out and run with you, how do they do that, and how can they learn more?
They can follow me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group and a page, and I will post some of my runs there where people can join me whenever I figure it's an area that's safe enough and not too many busy streets. And
just as a last question, I got to ask you, Paul. I mean, you're a dedicated man. You said you were running yesterday, trying to complete Windsor Park. It wasn't the best day to be out running. What was it like for you when the weather was turning?
Well, it was kind of interesting yesterday because we took off running. There was 5 of us yesterday, and a mile into the run, we're going along, and there was a very well-disguised puddle, just kind of covered with snow a little bit. And I didn't even realize it was there, but it was ankle deep, and my feet got totally drenched with ice-cold water.
I think in the prairies we call it a booter, right?
Yes.
You got a big old booter. I hate when my socks get wet through the shoes like that. It's the worst feeling.
Yeah. By the end of the run, my feet had warmed up, and it was like they were sitting in a nice warm foot bath. So.
I don't know if that might be kind of a gross image for folks having breakfast. Paul, sincerely, back to the serious stuff. We're glad you're here, and thank you for telling us about your tie to St. Boniface Hospital. Good luck with the rest of your epic run.
Do I have time to just thank a few places for displaying my promotional materials?
Real quick, if that's okay.
Yeah. I would just like to thank the running room, City Park Runners, Folio's Cafe at the Mennonite University, Bella Moda Home Furnishings, and Wannabe's Diner.
Awesome. Important to thank those community partners always. We don't do anything in Winnipeg alone when we're a community of our size. So good luck the rest of the way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Marcy.
That's Paul Bernardin. He's a runner from Winnipeg. He's on a mission to raise money for cardiac care at St. Boniface Hospital. He is nearly done. He's running, he's nearly done Windsor Park neighborhood, but he is running every street in the city of Winnipeg. And we're broadcasting live from St. Boniface this morning. Stay with us on 89.3.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news. Your news that matters. News that belongs to you. Your World Tonight. Every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Time right now is 6:23 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa with Corey Funk on location. Shanley Vidal, Brad Lillies, and Abby Adiemi back at 541 Portage Avenue. We are in St. Boniface. We're at Colosimo Coffee Roasters. If you want to join us, 140 Provencher. Still ahead in this hour of the show, we are going to hear about the city budget and what's happening here in St. B. From St. Boniface Councillor Matt Allard, who, as I've been mentioning, says he was shocked and angry. That's what he told us after learning 2 pools in this area are on the chopping block in the latest draft budget. So we're going to hear from him. People are also writing in to us as well. And Suzanne Brennan writing in this morning, closing the pools and replacing them with splash pads, that's what the city said they're going to do, is a joke, Suzanne says. It's not fair to the youth and adults. I know the Windsor Park pool was always busy with families and youth. She's referring to one of the other pools that could be in jeopardy here. Maybe keeping those open will deter youth from vandalism, she writes. And finally, Rachel Chernowski writing in with a different point of view. Some people prefer a pool over spray pads. Pools cool off people better than a spray pad. Adults aren't really allowed to go on spray pads, so then adults will lose out on cooling off in those hot summer days. So folks writing in here this morning, not just about St. B, but about the budget overall, if you want to weigh in also and add your voice. Next on the show, let's talk weather. We know we've had a strange winter here, to say the least, in Manitoba, extremely mild. Yesterday, that storm moving in will return now to somewhat normal temperatures. But around the world, there's so much going on. Scientists right now looking at hurricanes say they are getting stronger and more intense with climate change, with some of the worst storms pushing well beyond the limits of our existing scales. They're generating extreme wind strength, extreme destructive power as well. And in a new American study that we're going to talk about next, some researchers argue that we need a new category to classify these strongest of hurricanes, a category 6. Kent Moore is here to talk about it, professor of physics and a climate scientist at the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Morning, Marcy.
So just before we look at sort of how we categorize the hurricanes, did you think, like in your research, in your area of study, did you think that we would be talking about something like this, like a category 6? It sounds like there's something of an 80s end of the world kind of movie type of thing. Like how worried are you about this?
Well, I mean, we're seeing more intense weather around the world. You talk about the extreme, the warmth you have in Manitoba this winter. Los Angeles getting a year's worth of rain in a single day last weekend. The storm in Nova Scotia last summer that had, 3 months of rain in a given day. So I think, climate scientists understand that our climate is becoming more extreme. So the fact that we need another category sort of is kind of self-evident to me, but it may not be to other people.
Mm-hmm. And I shouldn't overstate it. Pardon me. I'm referring to end of the world movies. I'm not suggesting that we're in any kind of a place like this. I do want to know how we categorize hurricanes. If you could remind the audience how the scale works.
Yeah. So right now we categorize the intensity of hurricanes by their wind speed. So as you mentioned, we have 5 categories now. Category 1 has wind speeds, maximum wind speeds from about 120 to 150 kilometers per hour. It goes up from there. The Category 5 is open-ended right now, so any hurricane with peak winds above about 250 kilometers an hour is classified as a Category 5. This study says that we need another category above that because now we're seeing really quite intense storms. So they propose a Category 6, which would have wind speeds above about 310 kilometers an hour.
What do wind speeds mean in relation to overall risk or damage? And what other factors are at play in that calculation then?
Well, it turns out that most of the damage from hurricanes doesn't come from the wind. It comes from the water, either from a storm surge. So think about Hurricane Ian that devastated Fort Myers Beach last year. That was a storm surge that flooded the barrier island. Or it comes from rainfall.
Toronto.
No more weather warnings, no special weather statement, no snowfall warning. We are left, though, with a strong wind, creating some blowing snow still, and cooler temperatures, a high today of -7. Some Winnipeggers with stolen vehicles hope a national summit on auto theft leads to tougher penalties for thieves. Morgan Leaphack's 2006 Chevrolet Trailblazer was stolen last Thursday from outside her office. She says the keys were in her purse, but someone still managed to drive away with the SUV. At yesterday's national summit, the Prime Minister hinted at tougher penalties to curb car theft. It is something Lipak would like to see.
Car prices nowadays, since COVID, everything has jumped up about 2, 3, 4 times the price. So now you're looking at people who bought a car, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that are now having to pay 3, 4 times as much for the same type of vehicle, maybe even higher kilometers if they can't afford something new. It's not fair.
Lipak's vehicle hasn't been found. In Ontario and Quebec, police are seeing organized crime groups stealing and then shipping cars for sale abroad, but police here say that is not common in Manitoba. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet says it has lost $10,000 to online ticket fraud. The renowned dance company says scammers use stolen credit card numbers to buy tickets to its recent production of The Nutcracker. Those tickets were then resold through third-party platforms. Technology analyst Carmi Levy says the high-tech schemes using stolen credit card numbers are becoming more common.
There's a certain window between the time it's reported and the time that you can stop making purchases on that account. Thief takes advantage of that and very quickly goes to a concert website, buys a whole block of tickets, and then resells them at a profit. Rinse, repeats, profit.
Levy advises people not to expose their credit card numbers by storing them online. The RWB is asking patrons to buy tickets directly from its website or box office and avoid ticket resellers. A Winnipegger originally from Chad is not surprised more people from his homeland are seeking refuge in Manitoba. Last month, officials found 7 men from Chad who walked across the border near Emerson. Raymond Garboui left Chad more than 20 years ago. He says his homeland is run by a dictator and his militia. He says people have no education, they don't have electricity, they fear for their lives, and he hopes those seeking refuge here receive empathy.
The Manitoban authorities, the Canadian government authorities think of what made those people to cross the borders and to come here to seek asylum.
Garboui says there are fewer than 10 families from Chad in Manitoba. He's been in touch with 4 men from Chad who crossed the border in December seeking refuge. Well, all rooms at an Indigenous wellness center at the former Balmoral Hotel building will be ready in a few weeks. Plans for the inner-city Winnipeg Hotel's overhaul include a daycare and a walk-in clinic, all focused on helping Indigenous people, particularly those who have come to Winnipeg for medical appointments. Desiree McIver speaks for the center.
Might be under renovation right now, however, we're still open. There are wheelchair accessible rooms for guests who need the extra space, and then there's a family room. The main priority right now would be getting the rooms up to par so that we can have more residents and guests.
Visitors from about 5 First Nations have already stayed at the center. Pride Winnipeg is launching a new initiative to bring other Pride organizations across the province together. Manitoba Pride Alliance members will share resources. They'll participate in educational workshops. Pride Winnipeg's Jen Rands will lead the alliance.
Manitoba has always been a little bit behind other provinces when it comes to things like gender equity, and especially when it comes to using provincial dollars to fund Pride organizations. It's more important now than ever to grow the Pride movement.
Rands hopes the initiative benefits the smaller Pride organizations. The alliance was created with grants from Pride Winnipeg, which it received from the province last year. Well, the Winnipeg Jets could not score a goal until the game was almost over.
Connor tucks it in. Kyle Connor scores, and the Jets are on the board.
Kyle Connor on TSN with about 5 minutes left in the third period as the Jets were outpaced by the Flyers 4-1. This is Winnipeg's 5th straight loss. Jets head coach Rick Bowness says it was a tough first period.
A couple of bad bounces. That's going to happen. We battled back. We dominated the last 40 minutes. Normally we're scoring a few more goals than we are right now. It goes back to that.
But Bowness says his team will pull through, insisting the Jets are still the best team in the league. That is it for this road trip. The Jets will try to snap their losing skid tomorrow, hosting Pittsburgh in a rematch against the Penguins, who blanked Winnipeg 3-0 on Tuesday. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
So we are live on location this morning. We're at 140 Provencher. We are at Colosimo Coffee Roasters in Winnipeg, and we hope you can come down and join us. Awesome spot. They're very local. They've been open at this location for about a year. They've got 4 across the city, I understand, but all over the walls, just beautiful, colorful art. These are all paintings, canvases, sketches, drawings, all local artists. So very local spot if you want to come on down and join us. We are here to talk city budget, and we are also going to have a focus on St. Boniface. We'll hear from the councillor for this area this half hour, more about why he's upset about some of the recreational things that are proposed in the budget, to pool closures affecting his ward, his constituency. I should also mention later that the Premier will be here live on location with us. This just happens to be the day where Premier Wab Kinew is joining us for our regular monthly meeting, our regular monthly interview rather, but he's going to meet us here at Colosimo Coffee, so he's going to be down here in the next hour of the show. So from winter woes to roads to hydro woes, Wab Kinew will join us for that interview. So stay tuned. Right now, let's dip back into the weather with Abby Adiemi in our forecast.
Good morning once again. In Winnipeg, it's a chilly start with light blowing snow. The current temperature is at minus 10 degrees, but it feels like minus 20 with a wind chill. Expect the high to reach minus 7 today. Tonight, it's going to be mainly cloudy with a low of minus 11. Moving over to Brandon now, it's currently minus 6 over there. And for the rest of the Western region, it's mostly going to be cloudy with periods of snow ending near noon, and the high for today is minus 5 with a northwest wind. Up in Thompson, good morning. You are currently at minus 17 today. It's mainly cloudy with light snow now. You're going for the high of minus 12. Churchill is currently at minus 23. Gimli is currently at minus 12. The Interlake region will see periods of light snow and local blowing snow. The high for today will reach minus 7. Dauphin is at minus 8. Steinbach is at minus 10. And lastly, in Maurice, we are looking at minus 9. The Pembina Valley region will see periods of light snow and local blowing snow, and the high for today is going to be around minus 6 with northwest wind, and the wind chill will feel like minus 21 this morning. And talking about that light blowing snow, which might be hindering commutes, I would say you need to take it easy as you start your day.
Shanley Vidal is here now with what's going on the commute, speaking of which, and I know that we don't have any school closures today, which is a good sign, unlike yesterday, but what are you hearing from the roadways?
Well, as you mentioned, we do have those delays on Kenaston northbound. Because of that train, traffic is very slow. It's still backed up to Scurfield, so it might be add a few minutes to your commute right now. It is still early, so hopefully not too much of a delay. If you're on any of the highways, take extra caution because they are partly snow covered. If you're on the perimeter, Highway 1 west from Winnipeg to Brandon, partly ice covered. Highway 75 to Winnipeg to Emerson, Highway 6, 7, 8, and 9. Also, if you're on 15 to Enola, there is some fair visibility and also reduced visibility on some of the highways northwest of the perimeter. And if you have a traffic tip, that number is 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you very much, Shanley. It is right now time to connect with business news at 21 minutes to 7 o'clock. Crystal Ramlakan joins us with our business report. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Marcy.
So a Canadian miner, as we heard in World Report earlier this week, is planning to build what it says could be the largest nickel processing plant in North America. From the business lens, what are the details?
Yeah, well, Canada Nickel has announced plans to build 2 processing facilities in northeastern Ontario that will form part of the province's electric vehicle battery push. So the company plans to develop a nickel processing facility that will cost $1 billion and a plant that will make stainless steel and alloys. And the CEO says the facilities in Timmins, Ontario will fill a critical link in the electric vehicle battery supply chain, given that nickel is a major component of them. So the vast majority of metals are extracted from mines in the region, from mines in the region, are shipped to China for processing before returning here to North America for domestic auto manufacturers to use. So the company says the plants will use its carbon storage technology as well to produce zero carbon nickel and stainless steel. And they are expected to be operational by 2027. And the company also plans to seek funding from both the Canadian and Ontario governments to help build.
high interest, obviously, here in Manitoba over this, but also over whether or not there's a piece of the pie for us in the future with nickel mining being something, obviously, we know well in the north. Let's go to another story. A court battle between the Canada Revenue Agency and the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs could be pivotal for other pro athletes. What's at stake here? What are the details?
Yes, well, Leafs captain John Tavares is taking the CRA to court over an $8 million tax bill, and the outcome could affect which teams pros sign with in the future, possibly. So the NHL star has filed an appeal over the bill for back taxes and interest, dating back to 2018 when he signed a $77 million contract. So at issue here is a $15.25 million signing bonus, which under the U.S.-Canada tax treaty, Tavares says should be taxed at a much lower rate than the rest of his salary. But of course, the CRA disagrees. So players throughout the NHL use signing bonuses as a way to structure their contracts so they have a limited tax liability. And so for Tavares' first year of a 7-year contract, he got $16 million. Only $650,000 of it was actual salary. The rest was a signing bonus. Now, the CRA believes the entire compensation package should be treated as salary and taxed the same way. For more on this, we spoke to Rob Kreklewitz, who is a tax lawyer, though he's not involved in this specific case.
Generally, it's an uphill battle when you're fighting the CRA because the CRA is allowed to make certain assumptions about what is going on, and the burden of proof sort of shifts to the taxpayer to disprove whatever the CRA has assumed.
Now, a key argument in this case says the bonus was actually payable regardless of whether Tavares played, traded, or was injured. And his claims, though, have not been tested in court, and the CRA has yet to file its response. Signing bonuses are common practice in major sports leagues, as we know. So this case is going to matter to other players. Some say taxes can be a roadblock to attracting new talent, especially compared to American franchises in low-tax jurisdictions like Florida. And critics also say taxes can be a roadblock to attracting and retaining other skilled workers, such as entrepreneurs, doctors, and engineers.
Well, let's continue talking about athletes because it's Super Bowl weekend and brands pay millions of dollars for commercials that we in Canada won't be seeing during the game. But does advertising at the event actually pay off?
Well, we spoke to a marketer who says with the media being more and more fragmented, the Super Bowl is a unique opportunity for brands because it's one of the biggest events in the world, and companies can have access to a huge audience of millions of people. People are captive, and some people even want to see the commercials. So Hugo Fournier is the vice president of strategy at Cassette, which is a marketing agency. He says brands, though, should be careful if they decide to invest say, $7 million on a 30-second spot. That's what they're going for these days. And to have a measurement of what they want to get out of it.
When you create a Super Bowl ad, it can have an impact or an effect on generating revenues. But that's not what I would look at if I would be like a brand owner. For me, if I run a Super Bowl ad and all the experience around it, I would look at positive sentiment. I would look at the conversation I'm able to trigger. And I would look at the global sort of the overall fame effect that I'm able to generate with my creativity.
And he also says, of course, what's happening with Taylor Swift as she's there supporting her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, is a marketer's dream. He says that brands can use all of the attention that she's bringing to expand their audiences.
What's up in the markets, Crystalie?
So in Europe, stocks are slightly higher. Germany, the UK, and France are all up. In Asia, markets are mostly up too. Japan and Shanghai are up. Hong Kong is down. Oil is up 12 cents to $76.34 US per barrel. Gold is down $1.40 to $2,033.13 US per ounce. And the dollar is just slightly up 0.01 of a cent to 74.32 cents US.
All right, Crystalie Ramlakan, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. Have a good weekend.
You as well. And that's your Friday morning business news on CBC. Well, good morning, Winnipeg, and hello, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're on location with the show this morning. We're in St. Boniface at 140 Provincial Colosimo Coffee. If you want to come down and have a coffee, if you want to talk about the city budget, how it's affecting your pocketbook, we're here because some recreational facilities here in St. B are being closed. So we're going to hear from the councillor in a moment for the area. I want to mention the weather this morning. Wow, yesterday it started exactly how we thought it would, slushy and blowing and strong winds, and then it calmed down. You're waking up this morning to some very light snow. It's -10 in the city. It's going to be windy, though, today. Still, winds northwest 30 to 50. Our high in the city -7. There's also light snow falling up in Thompson, -17, and in Brandon, cloudy, -6. But we do not have any warnings or watches today. In the city, I was surprised, actually, to see on Portage Avenue, for example, just how wet and slushy it was. I kind of thought it might be icier. Still take it easy out there. And also, the sidewalks benefited a bit from having that bit of a layer of snow on it, ironically, but there's ice underneath. So if you need to reach Channelie Vidal with traffic or the commute, a commute update, you can reach her at 788-3093. Well, next, residents of this neighborhood where we're broadcasting from right now, St. Boniface, are slated to lose 2 pools. The city's 2024 draft budget was released earlier this week. Now, on the chopping block, Happyland Pool over on Marion Street, which is just a couple blocks away from here, and Windsor Park Pool on Spears Road. Now, this is all coming less than 5 years after the Norwood Outdoor Pool, also in St. Boniface, was demolished. Area Councillor Matt Allard wanted to be here today. He had family commitments, but he made an effort late yesterday afternoon just to touch base with us. So here's our conversation. Hello, Councillor Allard.
Hello.
So what are you already hearing from residents in St. Boniface about this budget and how it's going to affect their lives and their pool?
Well, I mean, they're saying don't close the pools. That's clear. So, and I'm reaching out to my colleagues and I'm letting them know that these are really important community amenities. They have been old for some time. They've continued to be old. Yes, they do require maintenance, and I'd like to find a way to keep them open.
What are the realities? I mean, looking at Happyland Pool, for example, we had talked to some residents today that said that the pool in Norwood was closed, and then residents from there were actually coming to Happyland to use that pool, and now this pool could be closed. What would it take to keep it open financially?
Well, I have yet to get that information. I know it would cost money to mothball and then demolish the pools. That much I know. And I know from experience, having been part of past budget working groups, it often costs more upfront to mothball and demolish a facility than it does actually keeping it running. So I don't have the numbers in hand at this point. I'm hoping to meet with the chairperson responsible for this committee. I've reached out to several of my colleagues in administration. What is new in the budget, though, is $1 million new for a splash pad in Windsor Park, and so I'm looking at that $1 million, and I'm asking my colleagues if if we can keep the budget whole, I'd be willing to defer a splash pad investment. That's $1 million already in the budget. If we could find a way to keep those pools operating, and on that, I had committed to getting a splash pad built in Windsor Park in my last election, or to endeavor to do that. So as area councillor, I had been assembling funds to do just that, and there's about $450,000 already earmarked to that splash pad in Windsor Park. So I'm essentially asking, can we please delay the closure on these pools, do the maintenance, and if the budget needs to balance, then, well, here's $1 million that's already in there, and hopefully that be enough to balance that and a few other things I'm hoping to get funded in the budget.
Give us a sense of recreation in your part of the city, in your constituency, your ward, in terms of the importance of having some of those facilities remain open. How many other options do you have, say, within walking distance, for example, that would keep people in their neighborhood?
Well, I mean, that's therein lies the problem. I mean, St. Boniface is an older part of the city. It was a very wealthy city. It has a number of facilities, and a number of those facilities are older. And so there are other facilities. St. Boniface does have a lot of pools, but that's part of what makes St. Boniface St. Boniface. It used to be its own city with a large industrial park. people worked hard and they played hard. And I heard an anecdote about Quebec. Apparently, Quebec has the most pools per capita in Canada. And some people ask Quebecers, well, the summer's so short. Why do you have so many pools? And then apparently the answer is, well, the summer's so short. We need to have that many pools. And the summer is short, and we want to take advantage of that time to bask in the sun that isn't there for most of the year. And these pools matter to the community. They matter to me. I used to be my haunt, the Provencher pool. That one's thankfully not on the chopping block, but I think having a walkable community, and we hear that word a lot, is to be able to walk to those facilities that make a community. So a community center, a pool, a hospital, all those places that you need to get to. If you can walk there, then you've got a walkable neighborhood. And I think there's a tendency to go more towards regional centers in the city because there's a business case there that you can serve more people with less dollars. But I think the same is not true for every part of the city. I think older neighborhoods like St. Boniface, like River Heights, there are a lot of amenities, and those amenities are important to the neighborhood, and that's why people live there. And so I was shocked when I saw this in the budget. I was angry. I've managed to calm down and talking to residents and talking to my colleagues and really hoping to find a way, because I think there is a way to keep these pools open.
Help me understand, and residents understand, how is it that you didn't know? Because a lot of people say, the mayor was saying on CBC when we had a live show with him just weeks ago, there's been time to negotiate here from public, and then here we are with a preliminary budget, and you're going to vote on it like next month. Did you have no idea? You said you were shocked.
No, I was shocked. I was angry. The first I heard of it yesterday. I mean, I had asked for things like the Windsor Park splash pad, because that's something that I'd campaigned on. I'd asked for money for homelessness because that's something I'd campaigned on. I'd asked for money for the Marion Street functional design upgrades, the Walking on Marion study. I'd asked for similar ask for Provencher area bike network. Those were all things that I campaigned on being a father first, a politician second, wanting a city that my kids want to live in, and I think these are all things that make the city more interesting. And on homelessness, I think we are in a meth and opioid crisis, and part of why we're there is because we need to have opportunities for teenagers to have teenagers and adults to have healthy places to interact. What's healthier than going to the pool?
So let me ask you two more questions. One is to look at this from the other perspective, which is the fiscal perspective. Councillor Evan Duncan, who is chair of Winnipeg's Community Services Committee, said the pools, and he's speaking to the ones that you're referring to in St. Boniface and Happy Land included, have had low attendance in recent years. But splash pads have been very popular. So what's your response to that? Because there is a fiscal reality there to keeping aging infrastructure open, and there is an argument to be made for turning a corner to how people are using rec.
Yeah, well, attendance low. I mean, I wouldn't look to the last few years as good examples, because the city's been having trouble with the recruitment of lifeguards. So, I mean, I think that's on the city. That's not on residents. There was COVID-19, and then a lot of people came out of training with the lifeguarding system, and then the credentialization changed. And I recall when I was with my kids during COVID, I was in a lineup at Happy Land Pool, and I just spoke to the president of the Windsor Park Residents Association, who says there are always people at Windsor Park Pool. And I think if there had been a lot of staff shortages, that's on the city, and the staff should have been there, and there were realities there, like COVID, like the change in credentials. But looking at attendance, I think attendance will, if these pools do remain open, they're going to spike, because people are going to show that these pools are important to the community.
So what's the next step now from your perspective? And also we have the St. Boniface Residents Association on later, and they had said to CBC they were shocked, also their word, and they said that they're right now getting paperwork together to try to fight this. What would you say to residents, and what will you do?
Well, I'm working with my colleagues right now. I'm hoping that I'm making a compelling argument. Some arguments you'll hear around these quarters are it's city policy to shut down outdoor pools. Well, okay, that may be true, but in the budget, there's an outdoor pool being upgraded in Councillor Santos' ward. So I don't think that argument flies. And yeah, I think there's if there's a will, there's a way. I've been a member of budget working groups in the past, and yes, these are aging facilities. St. Vital pool was older, and that one was converted to a pool splash pad facility. So I think there are other options if these pools can keep going for a little while. If I'm fortunate enough to be around, I will work to make these better, and perhaps one day in the future, I can follow Councillor Santos' lead in trying to get one of these upgrades. Like the existing pool is going to get an upgrade in Councillor Santos'
in her
ward.
area.
So yeah, I think if there's a will, there's a way, and there's a lot of money in this budget. There's a lot of money in it, and I don't think that new infrastructure should come at the expense of existing infrastructure.
Conversation I had with Matt Allard late yesterday afternoon. He was unable to join us live this morning, but wanted to add his voice to our live broadcast from St. Boniface. He, of course, the councillor for the St. Boniface ward. Now, if the draft budget is adopted next month, the city will close Happy Land Pool, which is on Marion, and Windsor Park Pool. So we're on Provencher this morning, right in the center of the St. Boniface neighborhood at 140 Provencher at Colosimo Coffee. In less than an hour, Premier Wab Kinew is going to join us here. It's our regular monthly interview, so we have a number of topics on the table. But we will be asking him if the province is willing to step in and help the city pay for recreation infrastructure, given that the city says it is having to make these decisions. So we'll look more at that relationship. And we're also going to hear, Matt Allard there was referring to the Residents Association. So we're going to hear a little bit later in the program from the St. Boniface Residents Association. They're also going to be live with us here on site. We're talking about the budget. We're talking about your neighborhood here in St. Boniface. But overall, wherever you're listening from, you can weigh in if you don't have time to come down and join us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're with CBC on 89.3 FM on the app or on YouTube. Good morning, everyone. Right now, let's go back to Heather Wells, who's in studio on Portage Ave at 541 and has our headline update. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet is urging patrons to buy tickets directly from its website or box office. The world-renowned dance company says it lost $10,000 to online ticket scammers during its recent production of The Nutcracker. And organizations that host Pride events in Manitoba are banding together to make sure their voices are heard. The Manitoba Pride Alliance will bring organizations, including the small ones in rural areas, together to share resources. Your next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the weather forecast on the drive over here, it was mostly slushy, but kind of icy slush left over on the roadways. Let us know what's going on in your neighborhood on the commute line, 788-3093, kind of mixing weather and commuting. But Alan called. He said Redwood is closed in both directions between Main and Salter. Now, that is due to a fire. So that is all the information we have about that so far. But note that on your commute. Redwood closed in both directions between Main and Salter. Back to the weather. So we do have some light snow falling in Winnipeg, -10. It's going to be really windy and messy today, a high of -7. So blowing snow because winds will be northwest 30 to 50 and with a -7 high. But calmer than yesterday and no watches or warnings out in Manitoba. In the next hour of Information Radio, we continue our live broadcast from St. Boniface, and we're also looking at other stories that are in the news, like the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, Heather just mentioning, issues with a third-party site selling performance tickets. We'll get more detail on that. We've got a full interview coming up right after 7. Plus, from winter roads to hydro woes, also school divisions once again being able to raise your taxes. What's the province's role in making sure that all of this doesn't become unaffordable for your family? We'll talk to the Premier. Our regular monthly interview is coming up with Wab Kinew, who's going to be live with us in St. Boniface in the next hour. Stay with us. World Report is next.
Today on The Current.
It just happened so quickly and fast and right under our noses.
A dad in British Columbia is warning other parents after his daughter was pulled into an online cult that encourages self-harm. The Fifth Estate's investigation into how these emerging groups are exploiting children in Canada coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm John Northcott. Police and the FBI have a warning for parents. They say violent groups with extremist views are targeting kids online. The Fifth Estate investigation reveals predators are using social media to work their way into kids' lives, urging them toward self-harm and even suicide. Ioanna Remiliotis spoke to a father desperate to protect his daughter who's been targeted, and a warning to listeners. This story contains disturbing details.
The Canadian father was already reeling after his daughter tried to kill herself. Then he was horrified by what he found on her cell phone.
He asked her to cut 764 into her chest, and she immediately sent a picture of her chest saying, "Here."
We are not identifying him in order to protect his daughter's identity. He says she was manipulated by a member of 764. The FBI is warning 764 is one of several violent online groups targeting vulnerable kids, with the end goal of forcing minors into killing themselves for their own entertainment or their own sense of fame. The Fifth Estate investigation reveals the predators are often linked to extremist ideologies. The father who spoke to the Fifth Estate reached out to the police, who contacted the FBI. As far as he knows, his daughter's predator is still out there.
While I'm reading the messaging and I can see the timing of it, I'm just outside in the hallway sometimes. And I'm like, oh, this is right in my home.
The exchanges took place in private chat rooms on a popular app called Discord. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection's tip line received more than 500 reports of minors exploited on Discord last year. Stephen Sauer runs cybertip.ca. He says it's not clear if the same groups named by police are to blame, but the details sound chillingly familiar.
We've seen cases encouraging them to self-harm, are encouraging them to commit suicide, and then record the cutting of themselves.
In a statement to the Fifth Estate, Discord says it has a zero-tolerance policy for child sexual abuse, adding a dedicated team works hard to keep these people and this content off our platform. Ioanna Remiliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
It is a rare rebuke of Israel from U.S. President Joe Biden. He's suggesting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should ease up on attacks against Hamas.
I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top.
Biden is also urging Israel to allow more aid into Gaza for displaced Palestinians. The comments came just hours after White House officials said the U.S. will not support an Israeli military operation in Rafah. Israeli forces have been bombing areas in the southern border city. This elderly man says his home was completely destroyed. We were sleeping, and when the strike hit, we were thrown outside, he says. My daughter was killed. More than half of Gaza's population, about 1 million people, is currently sheltering in Rafah. Russian President Vladimir Putin has found a sympathetic ear in Western media. Tucker Carlson, the former Fox News commentator, was granted an interview with Putin, and Carlson made it public last night. Abhi Kugadasan has the details.
Are we having a talk show or a serious conversation?
With that, Russian President Vladimir Putin started his first answer, launching into a lengthy history lesson going back hundreds of years. This was Putin being Putin, espousing his worldview that the West is to blame, Russia is the victim, and Ukraine doesn't even exist. The Kremlin handpicked Tucker Carlson, a divisive and Trump-supporting American commentator, out of a bevy of interview requests from Western journalists.
It's clever politics from Putin and his team.
Ian Garner is with Queen's University in Kingston. His research focuses on Russian culture and propaganda of war.
Putin was lying repeatedly about events, about timelines, about reality. Carlson, had he done his preparation, would have easily spotted those lies.
The interview comes as Putin faces re-election next month. He is sure to win, but this chat with a prominent U.S. TV star, a way to push his message to Russians that Moscow isn't isolated at all. Putin also brought up an incident in Ottawa last September when a Second World War veteran was invited to the House of Commons and recognized as a hero. Only later was it reported that he served in a Nazi unit.
The president of Ukraine stood up with the entire Parliament of Canada and applauded this man.
The Speaker of the House resigned over the incident, and the Prime Minister is still answering questions about the vetting process. There was no talk in this interview of illegal invasion or possible war crimes, or the treatment of Russian journalists and dissidents, or the deaths of thousands of Ukrainians. Carlson set the stage, and Putin simply took it. Abby Kualdasan, CBC News, London.
Vote counting in Pakistan's parliamentary election is facing big delays. We expected to learn the outcome overnight, but the Election Commission has only released about half of the results so far. The delay is causing people to worry the election could be rigged. Everything is pre-decided, says this auto rickshaw driver. They're just doing this to fool us. Local media are reporting a lot of victories for candidates backed by Imran Khan's party. Khan was not on the ballot because he's in prison for what his supporters call politically motivated charges. At this point, his party seems to have a slight edge over his rival, Nawaz Sharif. Analysts say there is no clear winner. In about half an hour, Statistics Canada will report the latest employment numbers. Economists expect Canada added 15,000 jobs in January, but here's the twist. Despite all those new jobs, the unemployment rate may have inched up. Philippe de Montigny tells us more.
The Bank of Canada will be keeping a close eye on the latest jobs data, looking for signs of a cooling economy. Economists say the jobless rate probably ticked up again to 5.9% in January, a two-year high. That's compared to a 5.8% unemployment rate in December. This might seem like bad news, but it's a sign of a softening labor market. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem says it's exactly what we need to slow consumer spending and bring down prices.
2 weeks ago, we decided to hold our policy rate at 5%, which is a level we think is needed to take the remaining steam out of inflation.
Wage growth, however, has been stubbornly high, growing by 5.4% in December year over year. This makes running a business more expensive, adding fuel to the inflation fire.
I think this is actually a bit of a symptom of the pandemic.
Shiraz Ahmed is a portfolio manager in Toronto. He warns against keeping interest rates too high for too long.
So while they're trying to disinflate the economy, that might actually overblow it way too far. So they're really between that rock and a hard place right now.
Forecasters expect job gains in January, adding 15,000 new positions to the Canadian economy. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, a woman from British Columbia is crediting CBC News for reuniting her with her long-lost family. Last fall, we brought you the story of Korean-Canadian adoptees, who discovered their adoption papers were likely falsified. Now, that revelation is a shock to many, and one listener was empowered to find her own truth. Priscilla Ki-Sun Huang reports.
Literally, I just kind of fell to the floor and just cried.
Miwa Taylor grew up believing she was an orphan from South Korea with no trace of family. She never questioned any of it until catching wind of a CBC News story.
It mirrored everything that I had been told all my life.
Thousands of children like her were adopted by Canadian families following the Korean War. Many of them arrived with paperwork that falsely deemed them orphans. Taylor decided to do a DNA test, and to her complete shock, she discovered she had two biological sisters.
I was just beside myself. I was crying, of course.
She also learned she was secretly taken and given away by relatives, and that her parents died years ago. For decades, her sisters had been searching for her, but the task was nearly impossible because the adoption agency gave Taylor a new name and a new birthday.
Okay, Mom, we just got in the car. What are your feelings?
I'm going to meet my whole family for the first time in 50 years, so I'm pretty excited.
This is Taylor on the way to the airport with her daughter, en route to a long-awaited family reunion.
Oh my God. And we all just started crying, and the first words out of their mouth was, "Oh, my daddy." My daddy. They said that I looked just identical to my dad.
Priscilla Ki-Sun Huang, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. A reminder for more on our top story, When the Dark Web Crosses Over. It airs tonight, 9 p.m. on the Fifth Estate on CBC Television and GEM, or stream it on YouTube after 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. We are live in community this morning, and we're in St. Boniface at 140 Provencher at Colosimo Coffee Roasters. Now, there's always a good reason to be out, just to get out and meet the people in our different neighborhoods. But we're specifically here today because a lot of people yesterday were really concerned. Residents in St. Boniface saying to CBC and telling us that they're right now deciding what they can do. They're drafting letters and trying to fight back against the potential closure of 2 pools in their area. That was one of the things announced in the civic budget this week. The councillor was on last hour with us. We will hear from residents in the next hour. So we're on location talking budget. In addition, this hour on the program, the mayor is not with us this morning, but the premier happens to be with us because it is our regular monthly interview. We're going to talk winter roads. We're going to talk hydro woes. We're also going to talk about whether or not the province has any money to help the city with recreational facilities. So that's coming up with Wab Kinew. He'll be live on location with us here at Colosimo Coffee. So that's coming up. In addition, I should mention one other story because it's this half hour and it might be affecting you. We're going to talk to the RWB about an increase in chargeback incidents. We'll find out what that is, but also how they're now cautioning visitors when they purchase performance tickets. So we'll hear more in a moment. Right now, we have to go to Heather Wells, who's with us with other news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, some Winnipeggers with stolen vehicles hope a national summit on auto theft leads to tougher penalties for thieves. Morgan Lepak's 2006 Chevy Trailblazer was stolen last Thursday from outside her office. She says the keys were in her purse, and yet someone still managed to drive away with the SUV. We'll hear more from her. The Balmoral Hotel's transformation into an Indigenous wellness center is almost complete. Doors at the new Pimachikamak Wellness Center are open, even though it's still under renovation. 45 rooms are going to be available for members of remote First Nations coming to Winnipeg for medical appointments. We'll hear what else they'll find in that Balmoral Hotel as it is transformed, coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is time to find out what's going on with the weather forecast. And then we'll go to Shanley Vidal and hear about some school closures. As soon as I said there wouldn't be divisions affected, there are. Abby, we're on the other side of the storm, but still some challenging conditions today.
That's true. As you're sipping your coffee this morning, or if it's a tea, Winnipeg is actually experiencing periods of local and light blowing snow. And with the wind coming in from the northwest, the current temperature is currently at minus 11 degrees. The wind chill makes it feel like a brisk minus 20 this morning, so it's a cold start of your day. Now let's talk about what's in store for the rest of the day. We're expecting this light and blowing snow to stay with us for the most of the day, so make sure you've got your snow kits or whatever ready, your snow gears ready, and the high for today is expected to reach minus 7 degrees. Now, despite the chillier weather, keep in mind that the wind chill will be a factor, making it feel like minus 14 later in the afternoon. And for commuters out there, I've been hearing reports about people having to spend extra time scraping of the frozen ice of their vehicles this morning. Shanley, I know for people trying to just start up and go, it might not be the case if you're going to be commuting this morning.
Yeah, exactly. And I know last night my windshield wipers were completely frozen, and also some slippery conditions. We got a call from Sean from Liba who said Highway 59 from 317 to 4 and Highway 317 to Highway 317 from 59 to Lac de Bonnet. Both are very, very icy, and the intersections, they're not salted or sanded, so very slippery. So be very cautious through there. Kirsty called and said there is a collision on Sargent westbound as you're turning onto Route 90. It's blocking both of the lanes there. And we do have that fire on Redwood. So Redwood between Main and Salter is blocked. And if you have a traffic tip, of course, you can give us a call, 204-788-3093. Now let's get to school closures. All schools are closed and no buses running today in the Prairie Spirit School Division. That's due to the poor road conditions. Schools are closed and buses not running in the Fort LeBeaus School Division, and no classes today in Southwest Horizon School Division. So those are your school closures.
All right. Thanks, Shanley, and thank you, Abby. So we are, just before we turn our attention to our first half hour in a full interview, I just want to touch base with where we are this morning. So I mentioned we're on location, Colosimo Coffee Roasters here in St. Boniface, 140 Provencher. And the person that let us in early this morning is Ethan Jones, who's new-ish to Winnipeg. Good morning. Oh, we're going to get your mic on here. Apologies. Morning, Ethan.
Good morning. Great
So
to be here.
when did you move to, you work here, but when did you move to Winnipeg?
I moved here at the start of August.
And what's it like working in St. Boniface? I've always loved this neighborhood
Yeah.
with all of its character.
Oh, it's been amazing. The culture here, the French culture is just amazing, and the people are great.
How's your French?
Awful. But it's getting there.
Yeah, so is mine. And mine should be farther along than yours, having lived in this province. Yes. This coffee shop, I notice when I look around, I'm seeing a lot of locals. So you've got local artists all over the wall and such. How important is that? And what have you appreciated working here?
Well, it's absolutely critical to what we're about here. We want to be a hub for the community to grow and to have contribution from those in Winnipeg. And that's exactly what we do.
I asked you how your French was because part of the thing about St. Boniface has always been maintaining a distinct character. Actually, one of the developing stories in news right now is about the city hall, the old city hall here, and people trying to save it and also always enhance what happens here. And festivals in a couple of weeks. Do you hear a lot of French spoken though when you're in here? What do you feel that character of the neighborhood in the business community here?
I really do. I have plenty of people that come in here, and it helps me get my French up there because I have people come in and they'll address me first in French before English, right? And my wife, she's fluent, and she'll go around town and she'll be able to have conversations with folks, and it's amazing.
What can I ask? What brought you here from Saskatchewan?
My wife, she's attending to the U of M, doing her master's in psych.
Oh, good. Well, grateful to meet you. Thanks for letting us in.
Yeah, thank you.
Ethan was up really, really early to crack the door for us here in Provencher, so we appreciate that. We're not just asking Ethan what his favorite thing about St. Boniface is, we're also asking you. So yes, we're talking budget, we're talking issues here in St. B, but all over the city, but we also don't want to waste the opportunity of being live on location in Winnipeg without hearing what you do love about your neighborhood. So let's talk St. B. What is your favorite thing and why? You can write to us on Facebook. You can call us 788-3205. Well, back to the news of the day now. As you've been hearing Heather mentioning in her newscast, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet is days away from its next production, Romeo and Juliet. But they're staying on their toes with ticket purchases. In 2023, they saw a significant increase in ticketing chargeback incidents. The RWB has refunded nearly $10,000 to credit card companies after nutcracker performances in December. They're now warning the public, though, about purchasing tickets from third-party sellers. So our next guest, who's live with us here in St. Boniface, gives us some insight into the issues and how the arts organization is managing this. Jocelyn Unruh is Director of Marketing and Communications with the RWB. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what is going on? What is a ticket chargeback? And tell me, it has to do with people buying tickets that actually aren't legit, right?
Well, the tickets are often legit, so the third-party sellers will buy them directly from the RWB website. Third-party selling is not new in arts and culture and entertainment. What is new is the chargebacks that are happening. So basically, a definition of a chargeback is a credit card provider ask the retailer to make good on loss of a fraudulent or disputed transaction. So what happened is all these people basically opened up their credit card statements in January, saw charges from the RWB and said, we didn't make these charges. So the credit card company refunds them, but we still end up losing out on that revenue. So not only do we lose out on the ticket revenue, but we also have to give the money back to the credit card company.
So basically, the charges are charged to cards that are sometimes fraudulent. That's why if somebody didn't buy tickets to RWB, banks will refund the individual. But you still have to pay?
We're still paying for it right now.
So how are you dealing with that?
Well, we're refunding the credit card companies because that's what we need to do right now. But at the moment, because we've flagged this as an issue, is we're keeping a really close eye on our sales reports. So we're identifying accounts that look like they're fraudulent. They often have really easy tells on them. The email addresses are a series of numbers and letters. The addresses largely come from the United States. And then we're looking at several other options like twice authentication methods and removing print at home options for anyone whose addresses aren't in the state. So we're doing everything we can to combat it before they actually get in, but we are canceling the tickets. So there's a lot of potential for anyone who's buying off of a third-party site to show up and their tickets aren't going to be valid for the show.
How many chargebacks were there last year? How does this compare to previous chargebacks? As you were saying, it's nothing new, but it's becoming a bigger issue.
Yeah, you know what? I'd have to double check with my accounting team to get you the numbers, but it is our highest in total. I know I've spoken to some of my counterparts here in Winnipeg, and the chargebacks they've encountered are 1 or 2 over the course of a year. So it's really nothing. So to see almost $10,000 in chargebacks is very significant. And it's not unique to us. People are seeing it across the country and in North America. It's just getting more and more frequent. So we have to really be on our toes to combat it.
It's no surprise. It's not going to become as news to Winnipeggers listening this morning and Manitobans that all arts organizations, are trying to still get out of COVID and struggling financially in some ways as well. So how disheartening is it to have to deal with this, given that landscape, that context?
Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking. I know our accounting team is really sad about it. Our database team is doing everything they can to protect the integrity of the tickets and the sales. But you know what? I honestly feel for the people that are often going out there and buying the tickets. I think that most of the time when people buy tickets from organizations, they're doing it to support us, and they have no idea that this is potentially a problem.
You mentioned that, in January, people opening their credit card statements, but how did you learn about these fake tickets being sold? Was it just through the accounting that you were referring to?
Yeah, it was just through our accounting team. They basically flagged that this was becoming a more significant problem.
So what do people need to know this morning in terms of, just to reiterate some of what you shared, how to protect themselves against fraudulent tickets and what they should do? Should they call you? What should they do?
Yeah, the RWB is lucky enough to have an in-person box office like a lot of organizations. Not all of the organizations are lucky enough to do that, so they often rely on third-party sellers. So I would just ask that people really take a bit of time and try and find the source website. If you're buying tickets to a show, go look for the actual source, the organizational website, and use the path that website is giving you. They can be really tricky. I mean, there's even a site that's called Winnipeg Nutcracker Sales out there online, so it can be really difficult to decipher what is a third-party seller and what's not. So just using that diligence. And if you're not sure, just give us a call. We've got people on the other side of the phones and the emails that are really there to get you the best seats.
It's that specific. Hey, Winnipeg Nutcracker Sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a change, do you know, from past years? Is they getting more sophisticated in how they're targeting?
I think that they continue to get more sophisticated, but it's not new. Like third-party sellers are something that just keep popping up, and we just have to get more sophisticated as organizations and then more aware as online buyers.
I know we've done a lot of stories around the concert venues, the live music venues in the past about that third party, but what does $10,000 mean to the RWB? How significant is that for people? Put that in context.
Yeah, $10,000 is significant for us. It's labor wages. It's a lot. When we're struggling for every single dollar and every ticket that comes in, it's not a small chunk of change. And really, we know that the people that are buying the tickets want to support the organizations, and so we just want to help them do that.
For sure. Anything to add this morning, Jocelyn, that I haven't added, mentioned or asked you about that you think is important for people to hear?
No, I think just online awareness in terms of when you're buying tickets for absolutely anything is critical, and we're doing everything we can to combat it. If you have bought on third-party websites, please give us a call. We're ready for you at the concert hall when you do show up, and hopefully we'll see you at Romeo and Juliet next week.
All right. Well, have a wonderful next production, and thank you so much for being with us here in St. P.
Thank you.
Jocelyn Unruh is the Director of Marketing and Communications with the RWB.
Nothing can stop an Iron Man from stepping onto the frozen river to curl. Except the weather. This warm spell means the Ironman Outdoor Curling Bonspiel is being rescheduled to February 16th to 18th. Join us then for the family fun spiel we've all been waiting for. The Ironman Outdoor Curling Bonspiel, now February 16th to 18th, proudly sponsored by CBC.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are listening to Information Radio on CBC. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Whether you're listening on 89.3 or maybe you're watching on YouTube, morning everybody, or if you are joining us on the AM at the 990 AM. We're on location at 140 Provencher at coffee roasters. And that is because we're talking city budget, St. Boniface, and also about what happened here in the budget this week. One of the announcements is that this ward will lose 2 pools. So we're going to have the Residents Association on still here live from the cafe. They're going to join us after 8 o'clock. Beautiful place here. So if you want to come down and see us, we'd love to have you. We're also asking you on Facebook just because we don't get into community as frequently as we'd like, and that's going to be more now post-COVID era. And so I'm glad to be here. We want to know what you love about the neighborhood. So you can write to us on Facebook. You can tell us what's your favorite thing about St. Boniface and why. Next on the show, it is time for morning sports. Scott Regier joins us now. Good morning, Scott.
Hey there, Marcy.
So what are you leading with?
Well, why don't we start with the Jets, whose losing streak is now at 5 games, although at least they weren't shut out last night. Kyle Connor's third period goal ensured that. Yet the inability to score continues to be a theme for the Jets. Prior to this losing streak, the team was averaging just over 3 goals a game. And since the streak started, they've been averaging less than a goal a contest. Captain Adam Lowry admits the lack of scorings having an effect on everyone.
Those things weigh on you. I think when you get those chances now, you're just not as confident pulling the trigger. You're deferring. You're looking for the next best option when, maybe you are the best option. So there's no secret formula. There's no magic potion that, kind of gives you that mojo back. I think you got one that bounces in off a skate or you start feeling good. I think then all of a sudden the dam breaks.
So there's Adam Lowry after the 4-1 loss to the Flyers. So fluky goals will be the order of the day on Saturday, Marcy, when the Jets return home to take on the Penguins. Could be a little difficult, though. Pittsburgh, after all, has given up the second fewest goals in the league so far this season, behind only, the Jets.
Now let's move over to news from the pool.
Yeah, a pool in Florida, Marcy, where swimming's Southern Zone South Sectional Championships were taking place, which might sound like an odd spot to be based in my sports, but that's where Canadian star Summer McIntosh was performing her latest feat of brilliance. It came in the 800-meter freestyle. Here is how former Canadian star Brittany McLean saw it.
She looks good! Oh my gosh, go, 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 go. So long, farewell. So long, farewell. Oh, 8:11.3. I think that would have won the Tokyo Olympics.
Not bad, hey? Just missing the auf Wiedersehen good night or adieu from some Sound of Music. But that was great commentary from Brittany McLean, and why not? McIntosh's time of just over 8 minutes and 11 seconds, Marcy, not only would have won gold at the Tokyo Olympics, it makes her the second fastest swimmer ever in that discipline. The fastest remains American Katie Ledecky, who before last night had not lost in this race in 13 years. McIntosh, who grew up in Toronto with posters of Ledecky on her bedroom wall, is showing signs at the age of 17 that she may be taking over as the world's best female swimmer.
Finally, what's leading the headlines as we draw ever closer to Sunday and the Super Bowl?
Well, I think, Marcy, how close Sunday's game is expected to be. The San Francisco-Kansas City matchup is about as close as it gets. The 49ers listed as just 2-point favorites. The expected competitiveness between the teams, combined with the media attention Kansas City's received due to tight end Travis Kelce's relationship with Taylor Swift, has many believing this could be the most watched Super Bowl ever. It's already certain to be the most wagered upon. Kelce was asked by reporters if he'd bet on the 49ers or Taylor Swift getting a ring first.
I'm hoping I get this ring on Sunday. I know that. These bets are crazy.
If Kelce sidesteps the San Francisco defense as adeptly as he just sidestepped that question, I think the 49ers could be in trouble on Sunday. And by the way, most betting firms, Marcy, will give you around 10-1 odds if you're expecting Kelce will get on bended knee after the time it's all said and done.
Wow, that's what we're betting on now.
That's what we're betting on, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Have a great weekend.
You too.
That's Scott Regier with Morning Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're on location in St. Boniface, 140 Provencher at Colosimo Coffee. In Winnipeg, let's look at our forecast. No watches or warnings. We got light snow, -10. It's going to be blustery. Outside the city, still dealing with the aftermath of the storm. So we do have some school division closures and bus issues. All schools are closed. No buses in Prairie Spirit School Division. Schools are closed and buses not running in Fort LaBosse. And there's no classes today in Southwest Horizon School Division either. We will repeat that with Channelie Vidal right after your News. Also, right after your CBC Winnipeg News this morning on 89.3, school divisions can once again raise your taxes. The city is raising your taxes. That's why we're here today to talk budget. What's the province's role in making sure it doesn't all become unaffordable for your family? And can they step in and help the city with extra funding for recreational centers that are so important to many families, those that are on the chopping block? So we're going to have that conversation with Wab Kinew. The Premier joins us for our regular monthly interview here from the coffee shop in St. B. That's after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we've actually lost a degree in the last hour. It is now minus 11 in Winnipeg. Expect a little bit of blowing snow today. That wind strong, northwest 30 gusting to 50. And our high today minus 7. But again, that wind will make it feel colder. Winnipeg police say auto theft here is different than the problem plaguing Ontario and Quebec. Organized crime groups in those provinces are stealing cars and then shipping them to be sold overseas. The growing problem sparked a national summit yesterday in Ottawa. Officers say those kinds of thefts are rare in Manitoba, where it's more often a crime of opportunity using the owner's keys or key fob. Morgan Leaphack's 2006 Chevy Trailblazer was stolen from outside her Linden Woods workplace. She's not sure exactly how it happened because she had the keys.
It was gone and I couldn't believe it. So I come back into my work. I check my purse, see if my keys are there. My keys are there. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Manitoba Public Insurance says more than 4,400 vehicles were stolen across the province last year. That is down slightly from more than 4,500 in 2022. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet is urging patrons to buy tickets directly from its website or box office. The world-renowned dance company says it lost $10,000 to online ticket scammers during its recent production of The Nutcracker. That's a new record for RWB. Spokesperson Jocelyn Unruh says the fraudsters used stolen credit card numbers to buy tickets and then sell them to unwitting customers through online resale platforms.
Luckily, we were able to manage things and we never had to turn somebody away. But I think it's well known that sometimes when you buy tickets from third-party sites, that it can result in the tickets not being valid anymore, or there's two people in a seat.
Unruh says the RWB is now reserving blocks of seats so those who buy illegitimate tickets can still go to the show. A Winnipegger originally from Chad hopes immigration officials grant refugee status to 7 men who walked into Manitoba last month. The 7 were picked up by police near the Emerson border. Raymond Garboui left Chad more than 20 years ago. He says his homeland is run by a dictator and everyone lives in fear they could be killed by the military. That's why, he says, they take great risks to come to places like Canada.
They found that it's better for them to leave, go somewhere, if not reaching the destination, better to die on the road somewhere than dying on their own land in front of their families.
Garboui says there are fewer than 10 families from Chad in Manitoba. He has been in touch with 4 men from Chad who walked across the border in December seeking refugee status. The Balmoral Hotel's transformation into an Indigenous wellness centre is almost complete. Doors at the new Pimicikamak Wellness Centre are open, even if they're still under renovation. 45 rooms will be available for members of remote First Nations coming to Winnipeg for medical appointments. Desiree McIver speaks for the centre.
A lot of the other hotels around the city, they have bad reputations with the Indigenous community. They deserve respect, dignity. They deserve to have somewhere where they can relax and be welcomed. It's a safe and clean environment here, and we want to give them the respect and dignity they deserve.
McIver says they will soon open a drop-in centre in the basement offering meals and Indigenous-focused programming. There are also plans for a daycare centre and a walk-in clinic in the building. Organizations that host Pride events in Manitoba are banding together to make sure their voices are heard. The Manitoba Pride Alliance will bring Pride organizations, including small ones in rural areas, together to share resources. Barry Carlinzig is president of Pride Winnipeg.
With growing hate around Canada and around the world, and especially
especially what we're seeing out in Alberta right now, it allows a larger voice to be heard. So it's not just one small pride, it's now one small pride with 17 other prides in the province having that voice to ensure that our community is heard.
Carlin Zig wants to see similar initiatives pop up elsewhere, especially on the prairies. Well, it's something Winnipeg Jets head coach Rick Bowness said several times last night after his team's 5th straight loss.
We'll pull through this.
The Jets were outpaced by the Flyers in Philadelphia, losing 4-1, Winnipeg's only goal from Kyle Connor. 5 losses in a row is a new season high for Winnipeg. Rick Bowness insists his team will bounce back.
We're still the best team in this league, and right now we're not scoring goals. So we're going to stay with who the Winnipeg Jets are, and we're going to keep working, and we'll pull through this.
The Jets now head home to try to snap that losing skid tomorrow, hosting Pittsburgh in a rematch against the Penguins, who blanked Winnipeg 3-0 on Tuesday. You can find more news updated throughout your day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Time right now is 7:35 a.m. and we are live on location this morning out in Winnipeg. We are at 140 Provencher. We're at Colosimo Coffee Roasters, and people are waiting for their morning brew. Good morning, St. Boniface. So a bunch of people in line here are now getting ready. You probably heard them sing a nice good morning. We're asking you online what you love about this neighborhood. Doris Nelson dropped by, and she said, she's so central. She said she lived in Charleswood for many years, but she had gone to school here in St. B. and she, as a kid, and then she returned here now. Now she lives just around this area in St. Boniface. Says she's central for downtown, central to everything, and just loves the community. Other people, of course, talking about, the French Quarter, the culture here. Where we are this morning, it's a business location that's been open about a year here in Provencher, and all the walls are covered with local art. Nice cozy spot if you want to come down and say hello. Now, if you want to talk neighborhood, that's cool. If you want to talk budget, that's good too. That's what's prompted us to be here. So still ahead, we're going to hear from the Residents Association in St. B. We're going to hear more about what they're concerned about in terms of the potential closure of some recreational facilities here in the area. So 7:36, we're on location, but back in our studio, Abby Adeyemi and Shanley Vidal are going to get us caught up on weather and traffic. Let's start with the forecast with Abby.
Yeah, the warnings are gone. The special statements are gone, but it's a chilly day with light blowing and local blowing snow in the city. Currently, it is 11 degrees, but it feels like minus 20 outside, so you might want to prepare for your day. Moving over to Brandon now. Brandon is currently at minus 5 for the Westman region. It's going to be mostly cloudy with periods of light snow ending around noon. You'll be seeing a high of minus 5 with a northwest wind later on. Heading up north to Thompson. Thompson is currently at minus 16. It's mainly cloudy with light snow. The high for today is minus 12. And with the wind chill, it's going to be feeling like minus 28 as you start your day this morning. In Churchill, it is currently minus 23 with ice crystals. Expect mainly sunny conditions later on today, and your high will be seen around minus 20. And with a wind chill making it feel like near minus 34, you need to be careful because there's a risk of frostbite for you. In Gimli, currently minus 12. Brandon, it's Dauphin at minus 7. Steinbach minus 11. And Morris at minus 9. Winnipeg is currently at minus 11. And the roads are really, really something you need to take into considerations as you start your day today, Shanley.
Yeah, absolutely. And the weather and the roads are impacting schools. So let's start with the school closure. So all schools are closed and no buses are running today in the Prairie Spirit School Division due to poor road conditions. Schools are closed and buses not running in the Fort LeBeau School Division, and no classes today in the Southwest Horizon School Division. In Winnipeg, if you're on, heads up, if you're going to be on Redwood. Redwood is closed between Salter and Aikens due to a fire, so it is closed in both directions. There is a collision that still might be waiting to get cleaned up on Sargent westbound at Route 90. Last I heard, it was blocking both the lanes trying to get onto Route 90 there. So if anything gets in your way, please let us know. 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you very much, Shanalee. Shanalee Vidal and Abby Adiemi back in our studio. If you're watching on YouTube this morning, weigh in. Good morning to you. You've got you can see the cafe's getting busy as people are coming in here and getting their morning coffee. We also have the premier on this half hour for our regular monthly interview, so Wab Kinew will be joining us. What's prompted us to be in St. Boniface this morning is the city budget, and there are a lot of different things in this budget. It's been a long time since we had a city budget where we were not only talking about property tax increases, but also the transit fare increases, the rate hikes, the changes to recreation. There's all kinds of things in here that are going to affect your bottom line. As the city says, it needed to make some tough decisions. Other people are pushing back and saying that maybe they made the wrong decisions. Here's a listener line we got about the budget.
Hi, my name is Lynn Silver. I'd like to add my voice to those discouraged about the closing of swimming pools. Swimming is not a recreational activity alone. It's a life skill. Especially in Manitoba, we find every year that people drown in Manitoba, and often they are people who have not had the opportunity to learn strong swimming skills. So if we close pools, especially in areas where perhaps people have more difficulty getting to the next pool available to them, we're cutting out the opportunity for them to develop this valuable life skill. Further, from what I understand from people with children and grandchildren, it's already difficult to access swimming lessons. With fewer pools available, that problem will be further exacerbated. I understand that we need to cut costs and increase others in the city, but I think swimming pools, taking away the chance to develop life skills and closing swimming pools is a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. If you want to weigh in, 788-3205 is our listener line.
There are stories you just can't stop thinking about. They take you somewhere, they introduce you to someone, they share something new with you. Liftoff. Those are the stories you want to share with your friends, and CBC's award-winning documentary team is bringing them to you every week on Storylines. Storylines, new this season on CBC Radio 1 and always on demand on the CBC Listen app. All over Turtle Island, host Rosanna Deerchild welcomes you to Unreserved.
Indigenous peoples are retelling history through an Indigenous lens.
Unreserved, celebrating 10 years, looking back at how far we've come, and looking forward to the journey ahead.
How do we keep the story going?
Unreserved with Rosanna Deerchild. Now at a new time, Sunday afternoon at 2:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, 4 Mountain, and on demand on CBC Listen.
It is right now 7:41 a.m. Premier Wab Kinew going to join us shortly here in the cafe at St. Boniface. We're at 140 Provencher at Clissimo Coffee Roasters. You're writing in on Facebook, as we are on location, about what you love about St. B, but you're also writing in about what you're worried about in St. B out of the civic budget. So let's start with some positive comments about the neighborhood. MB Taylor wrote in, "What don't I love about St. B? I can try to summarize our incredible community. It is beautiful. Gorgeous green spaces, tree-lined streets. We have amazing restaurants and small businesses, active community centers, cycling paths, and a hospital that makes us proud. Also, our proximity to downtown. We can walk. And the people, we know our neighbors. There's a strong community spirit. I love it here." When it comes to the budget, Marianne Cirilli wrote in. Marianne was actually on a previous show. We were looking at civic recreation. She is with a group that tries to make sure that's top of mind for city council. And also, Marianne previously ran for mayor back in the day. She's written in, when St. B was a separate municipality prior to Unicity, they invested in recreation and culture facilities like swimming pools. Now, even though there were agreements to maintain them, St. B pools are under threat of closure. It's the old race to the bottom. But if the city council can abandon a bridge and partition the whole north end, she's referring to Arlington there, then closing a few pools must seem like nothing. I wish our city council was more ambitious and visionary about building a healthy city. Earlier this morning, the councillor for St. Boniface for this neighborhood weighed in and did talk about the fact that St. Boniface, nodding to what Marianne was saying, does have quite a number of recreational facilities because they were part of this area back in the day and being built. The question is the future for Winnipeg continuing to fund aging infrastructure or moving in a different direction? So at least for a couple of pools here, including Happyland Pool on Marion, just a few blocks over from where we are, the city is saying they're going to look instead at closing that and investing in a spray pad instead. So in your neighborhood, what's it like? And what do you think the way forward is? Is it worth it to you as a Winnipegger to be investing in some of the aging infrastructure? Or are you thinking, well, the city can't afford it, and actually I think they should save some money and go in a different direction? You can weigh in on anything budget online, and you can also call us at 788-3205 if you want to weigh in that way. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Love being out on location, and it just happens that today is the date that we had circled for our regular monthly interview with Premier Wab Kinew. And so we are live in St. B today because of issues that were raised in the city's budget. But what's the province's role in helping your family's bottom line? Premier Wab Kinew has just literally sat down and joins us now to talk about that and
I'm
more.
still struggling with my headset here, so thanks for
an
extended introduction.
I know. I could have gone on. Take your time, okay? Get it over your ear. Are you okay? Coffee, water for the Premier? Maybe we'll get you something like that.
Thank you so much for the hospitality.
Thank you for coming to St. Boniface. Why don't we start with a soft question, because I'm making you fuss with your headset. What do you love about this neighborhood?
Well, I love our MLA, Robert Loisel, for one thing. Great guy. And I think that the francophone roots of our province and the nature of Manitoba as a province bilingue is very, very important to me and important to our government. So I think the cultural significance of this neighborhood to our history, the fact we have Riel's gravesite here, Louis Riel Day is coming up soon. There's a lot of Manitoba heritage in this neighborhood, shall we say.
We appreciate you being here on site. I am now going to ask you the question about budgets. You heard what the city came out with this week. Will there be any changes to the provincial funding models, Premier Kinew, for the city?
Well, I think the details around funding for municipalities on our side is going to come out when we table our budget this coming spring. You know, there's one specific area that I can shed some light on, which is that we are going to fulfill our campaign commitment around the Waverley Fire Hall with our funding to the city this year. So in the election commitment, we said we're going to fund the firefighter positions for this fast-growing part of Winnipeg, which is southwest Winnipeg, which currently doesn't have ready access to a fire hall or emergency services. We made a big deal in the campaign about healthcare in South Winnipeg, you know, helping St. B and other hospitals by adding a Vic emergency room. And so this is one step in that direction. Basically, we're going to fund the firefighter positions for the city of Winnipeg, and then the city would move ahead with construction of this fire hall to meet this fast-growing part of Winnipeg.
So some news for that corner of the city. I know that
definitely.
There was some talk about negotiations with the city in terms of sharing revenue, increasing grants, which could help with things like recreation, which is what brought us to St. B. Where are those discussions at?
Well, I think the main thing is that we're ending the funding freeze. Right, under the Conservatives for 7 years, you had a funding freeze to municipalities. That put a severe hamper on the ability to fund things like recreation services in neighborhoods like this one. We know that era of austerity was a mistake, and it's just put the city of Winnipeg and other municipalities across the province behind the 8 ball, shall we say. And so we're committed to ending that funding freeze, and we're going to ensure that there's growth every year for operating funding for the city of Winnipeg. And then the city of Winnipeg, for their part, will be able to go out and make investments in not only infrastructure, but recreation services, the tree canopy, I noticed they talk a lot about. But we'll be there as a good partner to ensure that there's funding that increases over time.
Will your government help cover the city cover the cost of recreation specifically to keep facilities open? I know we obviously heard time and time again that they're so critical to giving kids, looking at the youth aspect, positive aspects. It's one of the best ways to prevent crime before it happens, to have those spaces to go to.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm somebody who to this day is part of a family who use city recreation services for our kids. Right now it's mainly the hockey rinks. But over time, it's been the splash pads, the pools, the wading pools, and things like that. So it's definitely an important investment. We are going to be increasing the funding to the city of Winnipeg.
But not targeted to rec.
Well, the targeted funding that we're rolling out that I'm telling you today is the Waverley firefighters.
Yeah.
We're going to be adding about 40 firefighter positions in
but
southwest Winnipeg.
But the overall funding increase, the city can still decide what it's doing with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so not targeted to recreation. How do you feel about the fact that a couple of recreational things are now being cut? We're in this place.
Well, I want to see recreation services for young people expanded across the province of Manitoba. We're going to work with municipal leaders, including Mayor Gillingham. We're going to work with law enforcement. We're going to work with community groups just to have a comprehensive approach to safety, but also not just the baseline of safety. Let's talk about young people reaching their full potential. And, the province, we have a super important role to play there with the funding of education and what we do in schools. So our nutrition program, universally accessible across the province of Manitoba, which we've just announced, it's starting this year and will be fully in place next year. I think you put that increase to education funding alongside increases to municipal funding and the open collaborative relationship we're going to have with people like the mayor that we already do have, I should say. I think we're going to be able to do some good things for Winnipeggers and for Manitobans.
I want to ask you specifically about two things you raised. So one of them was the nutrition program. Yep. I know your government, the numbers are $1.4 million added to funding for Child Nutrition
Actually,
Council.
it's $30 million. The $1.4 million is an immediate amount we're putting into the system right now to clear the wait list for schools. The actual program, though, is $30 million province-wide, so that every school division who needs access to a nutrition program is going to be able to feed hungry kids.
So will every kid in Manitoba then be able to get food through this program, the universal aspect of this? That's
universally accessible. Yeah, that's what we mean, is that any child who needs it should have access to this program. And right now, it's a patchwork. So here in the city, you might have the Nutrition Council. In Dauphin, you have the Dauphin Friendship Center doing like almost 900 kids meals a week. Mm-hmm. In other areas, it's the principal showing up at 6 a.m. to do baking. And what we're saying is that the health of children, making sure that kids can learn, not on an empty stomach, is too important for us to leave to a patchwork approach. So as a government, we're making a significant investment here so that every kid who needs it in Manitoba will be able to access this meal program.
The other thing you talked about was education funding. So I know that school divisions no longer will be penalized for raising taxes if they deem the provincial grant inadequate. My question to you directly is what checks and balances are in place to make sure school divisions don't make the hikes too high? Because some people listening might be thinking, why not just continue to fund education at higher levels so there will be no need for this? But what are the checks and balances that you're going to put in place to make sure that people aren't just paying out of pocket more on their school bills than on their taxes?
Well, I don't know if you've ever met our provincial education minister, Nello Altamar, but he's a longtime classroom teacher and principal, and he can definitely use his principal voice, shall we say. And he's used that with conversations with the school divisions to say, listen, folks are struggling right now with an affordability crisis. School divisions have always had the power to tax, including under Pallister and under Stephenson. And what we're saying here is we have an expectation that you're going to, exercise that responsibly. And in exchange for resetting the relationship with school divisions, we are putting a substantive increase into funding education above the rate of inflation. Now, there is definitely more resources coming.
I have met Nello Altamar, and while I respect that he's got coming from that perspective, is there a level?
He understands the world quite well. Yeah.
Is there a level that's too high though? Like, will you watch this and put strict checks and balances to say, you know what? Yes. You decide your own way if you need to add more. But do you have a number this morning in mind that would be a maximum where if a school division went to a tax level, you'd say, wait a minute, that's not going to be right for Manitoba?
No, I'm not going to make any news on that front because we want to have a collaborative relationship with school divisions. And so I don't think me announcing policy to them over the radio is the way to do it. We're going to work in concert with them. If there are needs, we'd definitely be happy to hear that.
You know why I'm asking? Because in the past, there haven't been checks and balances. So I was just wondering if that's something that you would look at.
Oh, in terms of accountability, yeah. Like with the meal program, for instance, we are transferring $30 million to school divisions, and if we don't see meal programs reaching all the kids who need it, then we are going to ensure that the checks and balances, as you say, are in place. Because at the end of the day, it's about the kids. We got to make sure that the kids who need this help receive it.
So we'll leave the conversation about that there. I respect what you want to share and don't want to share this morning.
Yeah.
Let's talk roads, winter
Sure.
roads.
Yeah.
It's been making big news. Still states of emergencies across northern Manitoba. As you well know, there's this big proposal outlining a plan for $600 million road that would connect northern Manitoba communities. How possible is that in your view as Premier of this province? And if you say it's possible, it's needed, in what time frame?
Well, I think the immediate need is this winter road season. So I met with the Grand Chiefs, I believe, 2 days ago. It would have been the day after they had the press conference that you're making reference to. And in the meeting, I said, okay, well, let's strike a task force here. And let's get a handle on the this emergent situation in some northern First Nations. And so at the provincial level, we've activated the incident command structure. And basically what that means is you have the provincial elected officials and the civil servants who work in areas like transportation and infrastructure, specifically emergency measures. You have municipal and northern relations. And then they've sent out a call to the First Nations and to our federal partners as well. And basically we have a challenge. We have a winter road season that's maybe going to be 3 weeks this year. We're not sure because obviously it depends on the weather, and we all watch the weather change in the last 24 hours. But within this 3-week window, which might change, we have to move about 3,000 loads. 3,000 trucks have to travel at 30 kilometers an hour through these winter roads.
And while I respect that, and you're talking about the immediate meeting and what's happening for this season, my question's about the bigger picture. Yeah. And I'm wondering whether or not, as Premier, you'll press the federal government for what they're asking for, the $600 million road, the big proposal that would make sure in future we're not having these states of emergencies and conversations.
Well, I think that we'll definitely work with the First Nations leaders and the federal government on this issue. But what I'm trying to lay out here for your listeners is that we have to move 3,000 trucks, 30 kilometers an hour, driving 12, 14, 16 hours on these roads within a 3-week window. And so what we're doing immediately is activating this incident command structure because the provincial government has a lot of expertise in logistics. They would be able to coordinate these sorts of logistical challenges. And then you have a lot of just, I guess, like everyday sort of questions about, like, is that fuel ready to be shipped? Are the building materials ready to go? And so the immediate need and the area where we've responded immediately to the requests of these Northern First Nations and really to the Grand Chiefs, Scotty Harper, Grand Chief Merrick, Grand Chief Daniels, Grand Chief Satie, and Interim Regional Chief Kent, is that we're going to step up. The province has know-how, logistics, the ability to really try and execute on this plan, and so we're doing that.
Are you considering the bigger proposal, though? I know you don't want to get there. You haven't answered the question twice, but can I ask if you're considering that, or obviously you've looked at it. Can you answer that? Is it something that's being considered at the provincial level?
We'd continue to work with First Nations leaders and the federal government on the infrastructure priorities they bring forward. The stuff that we're looking at immediately right now are the things we committed to in the campaign.
Thank you very much, Premier Kinew, for being here with us, and especially because we got you seated so quickly and into a big conversation.
Well, thanks for the hospitality, and it's nice to be in St. Boniface.
Yeah, appreciate having you here.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is our monthly interview with Premier Wab Kinew, who is with us live here in St. Boniface, as he said, at Colissimo Cafe and Coffee Roasters. And you can be as well. We're at 140 Provencher, and you can come and join us. So if you want reaction to anything that you heard from the Premier this morning, live with us, but also if you want to react to the city budget, that's what's brought us here. We'll continue to talk recreation in the city budget. A lot of people in St. Boniface worried. They say they were shocked. They say they're trying to figure out how to respond after they saw in the draft budget this week that 2 of their pools in this neighborhood will be cut. So we're going to talk about that with the Residents Association coming up here in our special community broadcast after 7 o'clock. Pardon me, after 8 o'clock. 3 minutes to 8 o'clock right now. And Heather Wells is with us from our CBC studios on Portage Avenue now to update what's happening in news this Friday morning.
Good morning. Well, the death of a 19-year-old man 2 days ago in an apartment on Assiniboine Avenue is being investigated as a homicide. Winnipeg police say the victim, River Harper of Winnipeg, was found dead in the hallway of a building in the 300 block of Assiniboine. Police were called there just after 6 Wednesday morning. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet is urging patrons to buy tickets directly from its website or box office. The world-renowned dance company says it lost a record $10,000 to online ticket scammers during its recent production of The Nutcracker. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we started this morning, and I know the streets out there were kind of slushy and icy, but a lot more melting on the main routes than was expected. It looks like it's calm and cloudy in downtown Winnipeg. I'm literally cranking my head around to look at Provencher here through the window. But we do have some school divisions closed. Check out our website for details, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And school divisions affected, rather, with busing this morning because of conditions. The rest of the day, light snow may be continuing here a little for us, -10 10. And we are expecting a windy day. Winds will be 30 to 50 out of the northwest in the city of Winnipeg and a high of -7. Over in Brandon, it's -6, cloudy right now, and up in Thompson, light snow and -17. On the commute, if you have anything urgent to update, please let us know. Channelie Vidal is picking up the phone at 788-3093. Well, our broadcast from Live and Community continues after 8, and as I mentioned, St. Boniface Ward may lose Happyland Outdoor Pool. It's one of the proposals in the city's draft budgets. Residents say they're not happy about losing their only outdoor pool that adults can swim in. They also say that the city previously closed Norwood Pool, and people from there were already coming to this pool. So where are they going to go next? We'll hear more about those concerns in some detail after 8 o'clock right here on CBC. 89.3 FM on the app or on YouTube.
On cue. After breaking into TV in a big way with a starring role on The Wire, Pablo Schreiber has made a career out of iconic roles. His latest is as Master Chief in the TV adaptation of the huge video game Halo. He'll be here to tell you about his career and dealing with angry video gamers.
You have millions of people who see the character as a version of themselves.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcast.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A dad in British Columbia is warning other parents after his daughter was pulled into an online cult that encourages self-harm. The Fifth Estate's investigation into how these emerging groups are exploiting children in Canada, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. We begin with the latest report from Statistics Canada just out. It shows the economy added 37,000 jobs in January. That's more than double what economists were predicting. Philippe de Montigny has the details.
The increase in jobs well surpasses expectations. It comes after 3 months of little change. The gains were spread across several industries led by wholesale and retail, as well as finance, insurance, and real estate. There were declines in food services and lodging, about 30,000 job losses there. Now, Canada's unemployment rate fell slightly last month to 5.7%, the first decline since December 2022. The jobless rate had been on an upward trend through most of last year. Average hourly wages among employees rose 5.3% year over year to $34.75. And while that might seem like good news for workers, remember that the Bank of Canada is looking for signs of a cooling economy, signs of a softening labor market, in hopes of slowing consumer spending and bringing down prices to rein in that inflation. Now, it's unlikely to result in an interest rate hike next month, but it might delay when the central bank considers lowering them. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
Now to your personal health data on the market. If you have medical appointments by text, phone, or video, that's virtual care. Most of those sites are run by private for-profit companies. They flourished during the pandemic, and now a new study funded by Canada's Privacy Commissioner shows some of those sites are selling your patient information. Health reporter Christine Birak has the details.
And what we found might surprise patients.
Dr. Cheryl Spithoff led a study examining how virtual care companies gather, use, and sell patient data.
Your health and
the industry includes Maple, TELUS Health, and Rocket Doctor.
You can see a local healthcare professional right from your smartphone.
Insiders, including company executives, told researchers in some cases, virtual care companies were paid by pharmaceutical companies to push products.
So they were actually using that patient data to make decisions in terms of how they were going to organize patient care to increase the uptake of a drug or a vaccine.
Your family doctor isn't trying to collect superfluous information in order to market services to you.
Lorian Hardcastle teaches health law at the University of Calgary. She says with a shortage of family doctors, some provinces are actively pushing patients toward for-profit virtual care, even paying for some appointments.
I think all of this puts the public in a difficult situation.
You can see a local healthcare professional.
Dr.
Right
Spithoff insists
smartphone.
Canadians shouldn't have to sacrifice privacy to access care.
What we're calling for is that all data collected through these platforms is treated as personal health information.
That designation would give Canadians the power to opt out of data collection on these for-profit sites. Researchers insist politicians need to catch up with the times, make sure virtual care is serving patients, not company profits. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Vote counting in Pakistan's general election is taking much longer than expected. The delay is leading to accusations the Electoral Commission is rigging the outcome. Some observers say this is another sign the election is going to be one of the least credible in Pakistan's history. Our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji has more from Islamabad.
Inshallah, I will protest because that is a not fair election.
Icham al-Haq says the evening started off well for supporters of Imran Khan, the former prime minister who's jailed and barred from running. But come morning, al-Haq claims there was a shift.
Army is coming, they check the polling. After 10 a.m. result change. Our candidates win. Why is the result changed?
The election results are trickling in with votes still being counted. But Khan's party Tehreek-e-Insaf appears to have a strong showing in an election many saw as orchestrated after a crackdown on Khan's party, with analysts saying Pakistan's powerful military was pushing their favored candidate, Nawaz Sharif. This level of uncertainty with initial vote tallies very slow to come in is unusual in this country, and that's creating worry among some of more potential meddling.
Generally, elections are meant to create a hope.
But this one not so much, says Tahir Malik, an Islamabad-based political scientist and analyst. He says the fact that many Pakistanis were determined to cast their ballots is good for democracy, but the delays in announcing results are not a good sign.
Even post-election political crisis or the legitimacy crisis will stay here, and the credibility of elections is questionable.
It's likely, Malik says, that no party will win a majority and there will be a coalition government, a divided political landscape when what Pakistan needs most is stability. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Islamabad.
U.S. President Joe Biden is pushing back at yesterday's special counsel report. Robert Hur's report into Biden's handling of secret documents described him as, quote, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Richard Madden is in Washington. Richard, what exactly is Biden saying?
Yeah, the president really tried to contain the political fallout from that scathing report, but he may have caused more political damage to his re-election bid and given new material for his opponents. Late last night, Biden held a surprise news conference defending his mishandling of those classified documents and trying to address head-on one of the most damaging allegations in that report. Investigators said Biden's memory was, quote, significantly limited, and they chose not to press charges because a jury would view Biden as, quote, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Now, these are allegations many voters, including Democrats, have deep concerns with, according to polls. So Biden pushed back in a defiant exchange with reporters. Listen.
My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I've become president.
Now, Biden tried to contrast his handling of classified documents, where he fully cooperated with investigators, versus former President Donald Trump, who did not and was charged.
But Richard, even as Biden defended his memory, there was a slip-up, was there not?
Yeah, sure was. Biden likely made things worse at the end of his news conference. As he was leaving the podium, he was asked questions about Israel. At first, he said Israel's handling of the situation in Gaza was, quote, over the top. But then he tried to reference the president of Egypt and seemed to get confused.
Initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow.
So clearly this was a gift to the Trump campaign and Republicans. Both immediately seized on the gaffe and will likely make this part of their campaign heading into November.
Richard Madden in Washington. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump says by the end of Super Tuesday on March 5th, he will be the Republican nominee for president.
We're leading everybody. Is there any way we can call the election for next Tuesday? That's all I want.
Last night, Trump won the Nevada caucuses, but Trump was the only major candidate participating in that race. Nikki Haley skipped the caucuses, calling the process unfair and favoring Trump. South Carolina, the next on the list. Now it's Haley's home state. She was elected as governor of South Carolina twice. And despite being down in the polls, she hopes her local roots will give her an edge in that primary election. Investment scams have cost Canadians more than $350 million last year alone. But often the scammers themselves are unwilling participants, people being held captive overseas, where they're forced to target Canadians. David Common has the details of this CBC Marketplace investigation.
So she said this is a beach that she went to.
Our producer has been exchanging seemingly innocent messages with a new online connection for days.
You're friends with her now.
Now that supposed friend is pitching a crypto investment opportunity.
This is a very hot investment project.
But it's really a scam.
$500,000 on my life saving.
Stephanie Lynn was among those drawn in who lost big. The man she was messaging was using a fake persona. Even more shocking, it turns out a growing number of scam calls are made by people locked inside buildings, victims of human trafficking, often in Southeast Asia, beaten if they question their organized crime bosses.
Were you able to do a trace for us?
Absolutely. Well, I can show you kind of in live time what that looks like.
Tracking money lost in crypto scams requires following electronic breadcrumbs. But it's not impossible.
We got 20.6 million US dollars that have been sent to that address by itself. So certainly that's more than one victim that we're seeing here.
Investigator Ryan Ryder.
This is much easier to follow than cash. It is fully open source. It is a public ledger.
Many victims, though, never come forward. They're embarrassed and heartbroken in a scam which has stolen from thousands of Canadians in the past year. David Common, CBC News, Edmonton.
And you can hear the full Marketplace story on CBC TV and CBC Gem tonight at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Coffee, Colissimo, and if you want to join us, please do. So why are we in this neighborhood? Well, the city budget came out this week, and there are some recreational facilities that are on the chopping block here. Residents are worried about it. We're going to hear from some of them this half hour on our special broadcast. So you can join us as well. There's other ways you can weigh in, though. You can call our listener line, 788-3205. You can write to us on Facebook, and that is on my Marcy Marcusa page, which acts during the show as a show page. I am Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC in your community on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us on your Friday morning as we stare down a day in Winnipeg that is causing some challenge this morning across the province, at least after the storm. So we'll get into that in a moment. I know we've been hearing from some school divisions that are having some challenges this morning, mostly in the west where they got really hammered with the snow worse than we did. Looks not too bad out in Winnipeg this morning. It's kind of calm, and I don't know about you, but I feel like there's something nice about a return to normal-ish conditions. It felt a little weird when it was mild and raining the other night, so I don't mind that light layer of snow myself, but hopefully it's not causing too much trouble for you out there on your start to your day. Right now, 8:11 is the time. Let's go to Heather Wells to update our news headlines at CBC. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, some Winnipeggers with stolen vehicles hope a national summit on auto theft leads to tougher penalties for thieves. Morgan Lepak's 2006 Chevy Trailblazer was stolen last Thursday from outside her office. She says the keys were in her purse. Someone still managed to drive away with her SUV. We're going to hear more from her coming up. And a Winnipegger originally from Chad is not surprised more people from his homeland are seeking refuge in Manitoba. Last month, officials found 7 men from Chad who walked across the border near Emerson. We're going to hear from Raymond Garboui, who left Chad more than 20 years ago. He talks about why people are leaving, seeking refuge in other countries. That's coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
And now we'll go to Abby Adeyemi to hear actually what the forecast is going to be like today. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Mercy. The city is actually experiencing periods of light and local blowing snow with a wind coming from the northwest. The temperature currently sits at minus 11 degrees and the wind chill makes it feel like a brisk minus 20 this morning. For the rest of the day, we're going to be experiencing this light snow to stay with us and it's going to be blowing still. The high for today is forecasted to reach minus 7 degrees. Now, as night falls, we will be under mainly cloudy skies, and that northwest wind will ease off a bit and then become light into the overnight period, and temperatures will be deep into a low of minus 11. If we look ahead to tomorrow, just a sneak peek into Saturday for people planning, the outlook for Saturday actually is mainly cloudy with light snow late in the afternoon, and expect the high to be around minus 5. But as you start your day, be mindful of icy patches on the road and slow down as you navigate through this snowy Winnipeg streets, because I see slushy streets, Shanna Lee, and I see people will be needing lots of windshield fluid today.
No, absolutely. And, not just the icy streets, we have that to worry about. We also have construction. I got a call from Allison who said Linwood around the Assiniboine Golf Course is really slow due to construction. We have several issues to tell you about. Jeff just called to say there was a collision, St. Mary's Road northbound, just past Ward in the median lane. We have a collision on Fermor, eastbound at Archibald. The median lane is blocked there. We have that closure on Redwood. Redwood is closed between Salter and Aikens. And of course, we do have some school closures. So all schools are closed and no buses running today in the Prairie Spirit School Division due to poor road conditions. Schools are closed and buses not running in the Fort LeBeau School Division, and no classes today in the Southwest Horizon School Division. And if you have a traffic tip, that number is 204-788-3093.
Thanks very much, Shanna Lee. And I know I said I was looking out the window of the cafe here in St. B, and it looks calm, but apparently the wind is not making it feel calm. So if you're walking out there waiting at the bus, it probably could be just a little chilly for you. Well, we asked you on this morning on Facebook, what is your favorite thing about St. Boniface and why? And you've been writing into us this morning with a number of comments. But a lot of you are also writing about your concerns around the budget. So Debbie Hamlin wrote in past years, St. Boniface pools have been a respite for my children when we've had to stay in town during summer hot spells due to siblings football or soccer schedules. Old St. B is a wonderful community to walk in the spring if you love lilacs especially. Walking tours, museum tours are interesting. There's suburb bakeries. There's independent coffee places to visit, like the one we're in this morning. And the view of Winnipeg from the east side of the river is beautiful. So Debbie weighing in on budget issues and on what she loves about the neighborhood as well. One more quick comment here. Kathleen Noel Black wrote in, Franco Manitoban Cultural Centre and Old City Hall have art shows. Winnipeg Sketch Club has had a home there for years. The Forum also offers art programs, and you can canoe on the Seine. So a lot of people are writing in about their love for the neighborhood. In a moment, though, we'll hear about some of the worries about this neighborhood coming up. Up first here this half hour, people in St. Boniface here say they are not happy with the possible closure specifically of the Happy Land outdoor pool on Marion Street. So Marion, of course, just a number of blocks over here from where we are. That pool is popular in the summer months, as you just heard. It's used by both kids and adults. So they say there's no other location like it in the neighborhood. The 2024 preliminary budget allocates $150,000 for decommissioning of aging aquatic facilities. They're also planning to spend close to $20 million over the next 6 years to build a new splash pad instead. And that will be in other areas as well, where they're saying we're going to take the pool away but build a splash pad. Teresa Quick is a member of the South St. Boniface Residents Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
And also in the cafe with us this morning, Sandra Dupuis is here. Good morning. We'll get you on the mic. Morning. Okay, we got a rock'em sock'em thing here. I'm going to move the mic. This is live radio, so here. Ready?
Good morning.
There you are. It's Sandra. And now we'll swing it over to Christine Trickey. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why was it important, Teresa, to start with you to be here this morning? What are you worried about your neighborhood?
Well, pools play a vital role in the community. They provide meaningful experiences for families and friends. It promotes bonding. It's a place to cool off. It promotes a sense of belonging for everyone. It provides physical fitness. It provides hours of entertainment for the kids so that they're not getting into things that maybe they shouldn't be getting into. It's close to home, so everybody can enjoy it. can learn how to swim, splash pads. You can't learn how to swim in a splash pad. The pool is good for children, for teenagers, for adults, for seniors. It offers jobs for the lifeguards and the swim instructors.
So you're saying to the city, with all due respect to replacing those with a splash pad, those aren't the same things?
Definitely not. There's so many more benefits to having a pool. A splash pad is just for little children. You're not. What are the teenagers that would really need to have a place to go? Where are they supposed to go?
What's the worry if the teenagers, so to speak, maybe, or don't have a place to go? Like, why is it vital?
Well, they could get into other things. There's drugs are rampant in the area, in all areas of the city. So this gives them a place to get their exercise, to play with their friends, hang out. Gives them a sense of community, that they belong.
We so often hear about that critical role that recreation plays in the lives of young people.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We're doing a series actually right now on young people and violence, and recreation continues to come up. So,
Yes.
how about you? I want to turn to who's with you here. I'm just, pardon me, the names have been Sandra. They weren't in front of me. So why don't we start with you, Sandra? Why did you want to be here? What's worrying about you when you heard the budget this week?
First off, I think they've got the wrong idea of what's going on at Happyland Park. They said low attendance. That's not true. In the last 5 years, the city has pulled guards from Happyland Pool on a regular basis to go to paid pools, leaving our poor pool to a capacity of 25 people only.
So have they lowered capacity because they moved staff somewhere else, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, and so why do you think the demand would be there? Their lineups, or like, why do you think that you think it is more well attended than what they're saying, right?
Oh God, to get into our pool, people are lined up at 10 after 11, and it doesn't open till noon.
So when they changed the capacity number, did that create people really saying wanting to get in line so they make sure they can get in?
That's right. And all day long, there's a lineup, whether we're at capacity or not. And they used to put up signs saying, due to the shortage of guards, only 25 people could come in. And then they took them down after I called CBC and CTV and the Lands and Global News and City News. They made sure to never put one up, and they don't tell people we are only allowing 25 people in because we've sent another lifeguard to a paying pool.
So let's turn our attention to Christine Tricky. I'm going to slide the mic over to you, Christine. Why did you want to be here today? What's worrying you about this announcement?
Well, there's a lot of changes coming to our neighborhood. Like, we know it's been a big target for infill, and we're having significant infill. Canada Packers, initially, I think they started off with lower buildings, went up to 10, potentially going up to 14 floors now. So you're looking at a significant influx. Anything along Marion or Goulet, they're trying to do larger sizes, probably 6-floor apartments. You're looking at the city focus going into affordable housing. Now you're going to be looking at people, okay, they may not have cars, they may not be able to afford to get other parts of the city. So you're going to take away these amenities from people who could really use them. And it should tie into their creating walkable neighborhoods. By taking away these amenities, you are taking away the walkability of a neighborhood. If they have to go all the way to Saint Vital, they've got to go all the way to Provencher. Especially just Canada Packers alone, there's going to be a huge influx of people into that area. And this would definitely be a benefit for those families. They can just literally walk across the street to a pool in the summer.
So it's short-sighted because they're looking also at the population that's here now, but it doesn't actually match their plans for the future in terms of increasing that population.
Exactly, and they haven't approached residents to see if there's other ways to save this pool. Like, would the residents be willing to pay a small fee?
Would you?
I would.
Yeah,
Even
okay,
if I don't use it, I'd pay
Let's
a
do a
fee.
straw poll, would you?
For sure.
Yeah, and how about you, Teresa?
Yes.
Let's get to some reaction here, only because we have, from earlier this morning, Councillor Matt Allard for your area from St. B was not able to join us. He really wanted to. Late yesterday afternoon, though, he did actually weigh in. We had a full interview. He said he was surprised. He said he did not know that this cut to the pools was coming in the budget. So here's a clip about what he says the action that he will take moving forward. His word was he was shocked to hear about it.
Well, I'm working with my colleagues right now. I'm hoping that I'm making a compelling argument. Some arguments you'll hear around these quarters are it's city policy to shut down outdoor pools. Well, okay, that may be true, but in the budget there's an outdoor pool being upgraded in Councillor Santos' ward. So I don't think that argument flies. And yeah, I think there's if there's a will, there's a way. I've been a member of budget working groups in the past, and yes, these are aging facilities. St. Vital pool was older, and that one was converted to a pool splash pad facility. So I think there are other options.
So that was Councillor Matt Allard from earlier this morning on our show, weighing in, talking about there being other options. It sounds like he's going to be fighting for the pool. What's your reaction to that, Teresa, hearing from your area councillor?
I don't know. I don't know what to really believe. But I know that he put a lot of money into the pool, so I don't think our pool is at its end of life. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were saying that there's low attendance, and as Sandra explained, they're using that as an excuse where it was their fault, and we had brought that up to them previously to say, there's low attendance, but it's you causing it because you're taking away the lifeguards, and then saying, oh, no one's using the pool. They shut down the pool on the weekends all last summer. So splash pads, I think they believe they were saying they're going to spend $20 million putting in splash pads. They could put a new pool in or renovate this pool and have other splash pads. But pools are vital for everybody all over the city.
So I know that Christine wants to weigh in again, and then I want to ask about what the next closest pool might be to Happyland, because often it's about proximity as well. So first of all, you wanted to weigh in here.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up, with the splash pads, one resident brought up a really excellent point to us, because we are a river city and water safety should be a significant concern. How are children going to learn water safety at a splash pad as opposed to a pool? And has the city ever thought about bringing in swimming lessons, which is another way they could also help cover costs?
So let me ask you this, Sandra, as we slide the mic over to you here. The people on YouTube are getting a good show of me moving the mic back and forth. But where is the next closest pool? If you had to walk, for people that proximity, Happyland might be important to them, where would they go if this is gone?
Either Provencher or Windsor Park. And at this present time, and for the last 5 years, when Provencher's over full, they come to our pool, to Happyland. When Windsor Park's over full, they come to Happyland. When Happyland's full, we go to Provencher or to Windsor Park. All our 3 pools are at full capacity all summer long. Also, I wanted to say that that low attendance, that goes on for 5 years, where they pulled our guards, and they also closed down our pools every weekend. And when we asked if we could alternate closings, they said no.
So just as a last question, because we have a listener line I want to get to here. People are calling in about bus service, taxes, other things that were in the budget here. But I want to give each of you one opportunity. What do you want to say to the mayor and council as they move forward with this decision? This is a draft budget. What do you want to say to them about what you hope they do moving forward then?
Well, all of this doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And since 2013, we've been fighting for our park and our pool, and we wonder why it's constantly us that has to, and we want to know what's really going on with the park, as we weren't even on the list for a splash pad. They're going to remove our stuff, but we weren't even on the list for a splash pad.
So you feel like the communication around this is flawed as well?
Well, we feel like there's lies and deception at this point, and deceit.
Okay, so some allegations there, but obviously this is your point of view as a resident.
And I want to ask Mayor Gillingham, Deputy Mayor Lukes, and all the councillors, what is really planned for Happyland Park, and what do you want that land for?
Sandra Dupuis weighing in. Christine Trickey, last word, a question for the mayor?
My concern would be the consultation with the community and bringing up viable options, because when we were working with Marion, the expansion on that, for example, when they had the huge project, there was very faulty communication and consultation with the neighborhood. What I'm hoping that this mayor brings to the table is a better consultation process that is more transparent and actually takes in the concerns and suggestions of community members.
We are really short on time here. I have 30 seconds, so one of you is going to have to not talk. Okay. Who's the last word, Teresa or back to Sandra?
Okay.
Teresa.
Okay, I think the city should rethink this and come up with a better solution. They have to realize that this pool serves the community of Dufresne, Archwood, Holden, Norwood. They just shut down the Norwood pool, so everybody is coming here.
You want them to consider the bigger area. Yeah.
Well, all these people are coming to our pool. This is for them, and it's close. You can walk to this pool. It's so beneficial to everybody, not children, teenagers, adults, seniors. There's groups, disability groups.
So this is not our last conversation on this, but this will open up, I think, a big conversation. Thank you all for weighing in. Really appreciate it. Anytime, weigh in on the listener line. Remember, 788-3205. We've had Sandra Dupuis, Christine Trickey, and Teresa Quick with us, member of the South St. Boniface Residents Association. And so now, more calls about the budget this week and how it's affecting your family and your neighborhood, inside St. B, but also outside as well. Here's someone that called about taxes.
Hi, it's DJ Oaks Monroe. I'm calling in about the city budget. I am happy to see that they're looking at raising the property taxes as a property owner, because infrastructure desperately needs help, especially in the North End. Transit desperately needs help. The service where I live, which is not a hard done by neighborhood, is terrible. My son, who works at a minimum wage job, has an awful time if his hours fall outside of 9 to 5 on a weekday. But more importantly, I'm concerned about the raising of user fees. And people will say, well, that means that only the people who use the service have to pay for it. And on the surface, that makes sense. But it's really a regressive measure, because a $5 user fee means something very different to a family with 2 incomes and a couple of kids who are in the process of paying for their house and so on and so forth than it does to, say, a single mom with several kids trying to struggle with rent, or a group of 20-somethings who are underemployed, who are pooling their resources trying to afford to live, or a senior on a fixed income. And raising something like transit costs or user fees at public recreation facilities has a huge impact on people like that compared to people who are in a more comfortable situation. And I think we need to look at funding those things a little bit differently rather than just reflexively saying those who use them pay for them. Thanks. Have a great day.
788-3205 to weigh in on the budget. Remember, council votes on this next month. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's a little windy out in open areas. Northwest 35 gusting to 49 right now. Minus 11 currently in Winnipeg. A high today of minus 7 with a bit of blowing snow. Premier Wab Kinew says the freeze in funding for the City of Winnipeg and other municipalities is over. The provincial budget is traditionally tabled in March, but Kinew says tells CBC's Information Radio he is ending the funding freeze to cities. Kinew also says he's making good on a campaign promise to improve health care in South Winnipeg. The Premier says that includes funding 44 firefighters for a new fire hall in Waverley.
And so this is one step in that direction. Basically, we're going to fund the firefighter positions for the City of Winnipeg, and then the city would move ahead with construction of this fire hall to meet this fast-growing part of Winnipeg.
Kinew says the years of austerity in funding to cities were wrong, and he will increase funding to municipalities for things like building and staffing new fire halls in rapidly growing parts of the city. The death of a 19-year-old man 2 days ago in an apartment on Assiniboine Avenue is being investigated as a homicide. Winnipeg police say the victim, River Harper of Winnipeg, was found dead in a hallway of the building on Assiniboine between Carleton and Hargrave. Police were called there just after 6 Wednesday morning by fire paramedic crews. If you have any information about what happened there, you're asked to call police or Crime Stoppers. Some Winnipeggers with stolen vehicles hope a national summit on auto theft leads to tougher penalties for thieves. Morgan Lepak's 2006 Chevy Trailblazer was stolen last Thursday from outside her office. She says the keys were in her purse, but someone still managed to drive away with the SUV. At yesterday's summit in Ottawa, the Prime Minister hinted at tougher penalties to curb car theft, and that's something Lepak would like to see.
Car prices nowadays, since COVID, everything has jumped up about 2, 3, 4 times the price. So now you're looking at people who bought a car, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that are now having to pay 3, 4 times as much for the same type of vehicle, maybe even higher kilometers if they can't afford something new. It's not fair.
Lepak's vehicle has not been found. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet is urging patrons to buy tickets directly from its website or box office. The world-renowned dance company says it lost a record $10,000 to online ticket scammers during its recent production of The Nutcracker. The RWB's Jocelyn Unruh says the fraudsters use stolen credit card numbers to buy tickets and then sell them to unwitting customers through online resale platforms.
Luckily, we were able to manage things and we never had to turn somebody away. But I think it's well known that sometimes when you buy tickets from third-party sites, that it can result in the tickets not being valid anymore, or there's 2 people in a seat.
Unruh says the RWB is now reserving blocks of seats so those who buy illegitimate tickets can still go to the show. A Winnipegger originally from Chad hopes immigration officials grant refugee status to 7 men who walked into Manitoba last month. The 7 were picked up by police near the Emerson border. Raymond Garboui left Chad more than 20 years ago. He says his homeland is run by a dictator and everyone lives in fear they could be killed by the military. That's why he says they take great risks to come to places like Canada.
They found that it's better for them to leave, go somewhere. If not reaching the destination, better to die on the road somewhere than dying on their own land in front of their families.
Garboui says he has been in touch with 4 men from Chad who walked across the border in December seeking refugee status. The Balmoral Hotel's transformation into an Indigenous wellness centre is almost complete. Doors at the new Pimachikamak Wellness Centre are open, even though it's still under renovation. 45 rooms will be available for members of remote First Nations coming to Winnipeg for medical appointments. Desiree McIver speaks for the centre.
A lot of the other hotels around the city, they have bad reputations with the Indigenous community. They deserve respect, dignity. They deserve to have somewhere where they can relax and be welcomed. It's a safe and clean environment here, and we want to give them the respect and dignity they deserve.
McIver says they will soon open a drop-in centre in the basement to offer meals and Indigenous-focused programming. And there are also plans for a daycare centre and a walk-in clinic in that building. You can find more on these stories as well as other news as it's updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Last quick traffic and weather, Abby?
It's a chilly day in the city with light and blowing snow. It's -5 in Brandon, -18 in Thompson, -33 in Churchill, -12 in Gimli, -10 in Morrison, Steinbach, and Winnipeg is stuck at -11. We're heading to a high of -7.
Shanley Vidal, anything we need to mention in traffic as we leave?
Reminder, Redwood is closed due to that fire between Salter and Aiken, so you'll have to go around.
Huge thanks. Can we say goodbye from Colosimo, everybody? Yay! Bye! Thank you very much, Jason Colosimo, for having us here this morning. Ethan Jones, all of the people that came here to be part of our broadcast from CBC. Really appreciate you being here to talk about city budget, recreation, and all the things you love about St. B. Thank you to our guests as well who made it through this slushy, icy morning to be here with us. So Jason Colosimo is the owner here at 140 Provencher of where we've been on location. And also want to thank our team. So Megan Ketchison, Aaron Broman, Heather Wells in our news department, Brad Lillies, Abby Adeyemi, and Shanley Vidal especially, who really pinch hit this morning to make sure we could make this happen. Corey Funk, I can't go on location without you. You're my partner in crime. Thank you so much, Corey. And thank you to everybody watching on YouTube this morning. See you guys. Have a great weekend. And everyone for listening today. So if you want to weigh in on anything you hear on CBC, please call us, 788-3205. Huge thanks. I'm going to run out of time, but to our entire CA team who came together also to help with today's show. Appreciate you guys. Take care, be well. The Current is next.